No, I don't want to. Hello, everybody. G's listening to lo-fi beats while they clean the house. So I'm just messing around on the piano until people start to filter in. I'm going to give it until, it's right now 6:37 for me. So I'm going to give it until 6:45. And I'm just going to jam for a bit. And then I'll explain the change of rules for today. Oh, got a sound in my ear. And we'll move through it. It's good to see familiar faces. This is a B flat. I thought it was in C. For those of you who are coming in and wondering what's happening, we're spending the next 5-ish minutes jamming out. G's cleaning. They're right here. They're cleaning things to lo-fi beats. So I'm just chilling. And then once we hit the 5-minute mark, we'll talk about what we're doing today. Because I had said before that I was reserving Instagram for Fridays. It's not Friday. I changed my mind.
Or is it?
Good. Keep having the conversation on YouTube. There's a live chat right now attached to the live stream link that I shared with you all in my story. And that's where we're going after this. People are there right now having convos.
Jamie had to finish cutting my hair on the last one, and they cut it higher because the other side was higher. So it just kept going up and up for people who saw the last one. I thought it was fun. And I ended up at this length. I like it.
Until then, how's everybody doing? I feel like a certain melody coming out. What are you confused about, Crimson? You're not thinking time runs relative. You must be thinking time runs linear.
Damn.
Shut up! I'm listening to lo-fi beats. I learned that one from my cat. Just kidding. I was doing that for years.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that Crimson's talking about my, quote, cryptic posts, which are really just encouragement for y'all to think critically about abstract information. And if that is what Crimson is talking about, it does make sense. I've already given you everything you'll ever need to understand. My entire existence is a cipher, my dude. We got 3 minutes. And I'm not going to talk to them. Not seriously. What chord progression do you think this follows? I don't even know if you can hear the lo-fi beat. Oh, see, now the B flat is a B natural again. Oh, it stopped. And that E is flat. No, that E flat turned into an E natural again. Damn, son. They were laying a sick guitar solo. I thought this was the... That Clara song with Kuko? I thought that was what was playing for a second. I thought we were done with the lo-fi for a minute. A minute being 30 seconds of cognition. Which was really... And in this reality's time, about 5 seconds of total cognition. It's been raining here as well. 1 minute. I left my car windows open, just like a crab. Because I was... It is. It's called Drown. The song I was thinking about with Claro and Kuko. It's called Drown. Claro just dropped a new album, and it's pretty as fuck. If you guys don't listen to Claro, I would suggest it. But yeah, it's been raining here. I let my windows crack a little bit, just a little bit, because it's been getting hot. And after my excursion, my most recent excursion in Yuma, my car battery's been acting like a crazy person. It's like a certain temperature. It hits a certain temperature, and it just every time you try to start it. It's like, man. And then it gets a little colder, and it starts up perfect. So, and then the readout says the battery's fine. But I left the windows open a crack, and it was not threatening any rain or anything. And then all of a sudden, it was like thunderclouds and lightning all over the place, and then it was pouring, and I was like, oh no. I remembered probably like 5 or 10 minutes into the rain, I was like, oh, my car windows are open. So I ran out there. Okay, it's 6:45. Welcome. Thank you all for joining me around the proverbial campfire. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be present with me and intermittently G.
That looks so cool.
You finished it?
No. No, I was just thinking the perspective on it.
Oh, yeah, with the crystal ball. Crystal ball. So, I said that I would only be reserving time for Instagram on Fridays. But I realized that it was...
You're a liar.
But I'm a liar. And also constantly evolving. So, if that makes me a liar, then I'm a liar. Okay, guys. And I just think it would be better to get a little bit of time in every meditation. Some face-to-face time with whoever wants it. But I did decide there are rules for it. So to better define the Instagram and then YouTube portions of the group meditation, I've decided that every meditation or most meditations, what we'll do is I'll jump on. I'll give about 5 total minutes of time for people to come in and orient themselves. And then I will take 2 people face to face. But here's the catch. I want to try and get new people on every time. So if we don't get 2 new people every time, that's fine. But that's the goal. If we don't get 2 new people every time, I'll then open the floor to people who have been on before. And then if even that doesn't work, then we'll switch over. Like that. Does that sound good? I think it sounds good. I just want to, give people a chance to say something, but I don't want to, by default, of having regulars, accidentally not allow time for new people. That's it. And that also sets a time limit. It's the time limit of whatever those 2 conversations are. And yes, the Dreaming Insomniacs, you are allowed to request. We have not been on here yet. So, thank you to all of the people who have already been on. I think we've had about 8 people on in total. You are all awesome. And now, let's open up the stage to someone else. Okay. I see you already sent the request. I'm accepting. And we'll see if the connection remains strong. Oh, wait, I can't hear you. Hold on. I see you talking. And that happens to me. Can you say something? It's not working at all. Hey, Hugh Man joined. Yeah, all right. Can you leave real quick and then try to come back? I don't know why I couldn't hear you at all. I was going to say, it's actually raining outside right now. We're kind of starting to storm. It's been I'll invite you this time, Insomniac. So the connection may be a bit spotty sometimes, like it just was. So, it's called the... Also, I did not practice some of the words that I just spoke about my idea, and so if it sounded a bit disjointed, it's because it is. Okay, I sent you a request. I see you sent me a request.
No,
Try that.
now I can hear you.
Hey, okay, perfect. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited to be here today.
I am too, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
I was playing some video games, and then I saw you streaming, so I figured I'd hop on.
Nice. What are you playing right now?
Red Dead 2.
That's hilarious. I've been getting a ton of Red Dead 2 videos on my like online plays.
I don't know how the game still holds up so well being 6 years old, but Rockstar knows what they're doing.
It's been 6 years?
Yeah. This October, because it came out the month my mom passed.
Whoa.
So it's been, yeah.
That's a long time, and I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, not it happens. We talked about it before, as you know. But yeah, the game seems to have the shrubbery thing down. I haven't seen any other video game do trees as well as that one does.
Even back 6 years ago, it was still really good.
Yeah.
I actually used to play that game specifically because I could never get out of the house. I was like, I'll just be a cowboy for a little bit, and I found that cathartic. So I'm glad you're playing.
The past couple days, I have kind of been doing that. I actually not gonna get too into details, but a couple years ago I started a side project to expose a bad location, if you know what I'm saying,
Okay.
near me. And one of the patrons of that place who had sent us death threats beat the shit out of me at a commercial shoot the other day. So I've sort of been isolating in the house.
The other day?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, well, he sent us death threats like 3 years ago, but the other day,
whoa.
I didn't know he was going to be at the commercial shoot where me and my lady played husband and wife in the commercial,
Yeah.
and I didn't recognize them until the end. And I was talking to the people at my table, and of course, his wife was there, came over. She's like, "Well, that fat white dude you're talking about's my husband, and you can leave." So like, he tries to pull me out front, and like, I tell him like, the reason why I have a problem here is because I could still press charges over the death threats that you sent to a business that isn't owned by only me.
Yeah.
And, it's still a problem. And he
Whoa.
grabbed me, threw me to the ground, and started beating the ever living shit out of me. And it was
Whoa.
awesome. Yeah.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
to hear that. That's wild. Sorry, Jay's walking over here.
Again, I'm not here to make it about that, but that's just that's been my week. So Red Dead Redemption 2 has been a nice isolating escape. That and making some music.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that you made
Oh yeah,
music.
that's what the whole thing is. It's a record label, so I've got multiple projects.
Oh, I knew that. I knew that because I've seen I actually frequently click on your bio for some reason. Like I go to your page a lot. I always find myself in the circle where I'm like, oh, I do know what this is. I don't know why, but every time I see the word Insomniac, it triggers me or something.
You want to hear
But
the story about it? I can
what's
tell you how it came to be.
yeah, if you want, I didn't realize, some people make like labels, but they don't have a want to make music. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I don't think those two things naturally clicked in my head. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, it started as my high school band. But my last 2 weeks of high school, I started this band with my friend Steven and my other friend Max and my other friend Cody, and we decided to come up with a band name. And I was like to Steven one day, we were getting stoned in my childhood friend Chris's room, and I was like, my favorite Green Day album's Insomniac. What's the band name? And he's like, well, Dreaming Insomniacs. And I was like, all right, there we go.
That's actually really cool.
That was it, yeah.
And
Their coffee company just endorsed us, which is really weird. So it's come like full circle.
That's interesting.
I've
I
given them
love
a
that.
bunch of money though, so it's kind of
That's really
it's kind of warranted.
yeah. I didn't know any of that. That's actually really cool that you have such a like a deep tie to the name and the purpose of it, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. And plus, it's there's a lot of stuff within the music that talks about the things, and
Yeah.
I want to try to help the world and people. I've been through a lot of things I can't talk about here, but I know what's going on, if you know what I'm saying. So
I think I do.
how we connected. So I'm really grateful you're having me on here. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
What kind of music do you write? Is
A
it
little
Green
bit of
Day
everything.
style stuff? Like more like that punky rock kind of like
Yeah, so I'm trying to bring the 60s back and the 90s back. So a little bit of everything in the alt
you said the
field, but
60s
good
and the
stuff.
90s?
Yeah, yeah. Those
That's
are my
so
two
specific.
favorite. Yeah, very specific.
What kind of like if you can just like fire off like one or two of your favorite artists from those two time periods?
From the 60s,
Yeah.
The Doors.
Yeah.
Paul Butterfield Blues Band. I know that's a
I don't know
random
what
one.
that is.
What else? Jefferson Airplane. Gotta love them. Jimmy Hendrix. Obviously, my dad was at Woodstock, so he got to see Hendrix live. That's in my
Whoa.
DNA. Yeah, I'm kind of jealous of my dad.
I found out it's the weirdest thing ever. My mom's mom, Cheryl, she's an evangelical Christian who's like super, she takes the Bible literally, but I didn't know for so long because she is such a, is the word staunch Christian that she had gone to Woodstock. She was like
Oh my
a
God.
hippie at Woodstock. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's insane. She was like, yeah, it was so fun. And I was like, how do you do what you do now? Like, how are you a Christian now when you were tripping acid at Woodstock? That's crazy.
That's great.
Very interesting conversations. But that kind of led me full circle there. I kind of forgot about that for a moment. What about the 90s?
Well, Nirvana, Green Day.
Yeah, okay. You got the grunge.
I've discovered them more recently, but Grey Days,
Yeah.
right? They were great.
Well, the original Grey Days is more of
Yes.
that style, but the
Yeah.
new stuff is more like almost like like a how do you
How
say
did
it?
you feel about what they did with that old stuff, by the
The
way? Was it
remix
respectful
album?
or was it disrespectful? I couldn't tell.
Um, I feel like everything can be everything.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that when I signed on for it, I was genuinely surprised. Which I say in I released like a promo letter on my Instagram way back, so you can find it
yeah.
if any of you are curious.
Yeah, I've been
Um,
into everything you've been posting. It's very important. Thank you.
oh,
Seriously.
thank you. No, I appreciate you tuning into
You're
that.
like the only one who's close to this
Unfortunately,
about the truth and not just trying to make it into this martyr thing that it shouldn't be. It's disgusting,
I,
you know?
and that's where I feel like the Grey Days thing kind of turned into a disrespectful thing, you know. And I talked to when Sean brought it up to me, I was surprised because I didn't know he was doing that. I didn't even know there was a show planned for October. In fact, that the last time I heard about Grey Days legitimately was when I met Chester in like 2002. So it was like, or even a year before that, so like 2000, 2001, like back when Linkin Park was breaking. I didn't even know Linkin Park was something I mean, I was a kid, but also I didn't know Chester was my dad yet, so I didn't
Yeah.
know. I was introduced to him through Grey Days and then through Linkin
Yeah.
Park. My mom sat me down and played the records. So I had like a vague memory of the music, but I didn't realize that he was like in the band again. And then when he passed, people were like, you know, Sean was like, "Did you know that this was happening?" And I was like, "No, I had no idea." He kept it very, very much so, like close to his vest, you know, and or so to speak. And so when Sean like randomly hit me up, I had in the beginning of 2020, I had offered to do music video for him. Like I was just like anything, I'll help because I perceived the Amends album to be respectful. I thought that's what was going on. He made it sound like that, and so you know I was like, well, I don't really know Sean like this. I didn't really know this was happening, but you know I'll offer my services, and so that's eventually how I got the Soul Song video. But that happened long in the future because I ended up first doing vocals for the album. Specifically, he offered me 3 songs. I ended up only doing Soul Song, but I wrote out like instrumental harmonies and vocal harmonies for Moray Sky and Down syndrome as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, nobody knows
That's
that.
so
They
cool.
basically, I got to the studio and he literally kicked me off the 2 when I got there. I had practiced them and everything. He was just like, "No, we'll just do soul song." And I didn't even take that long recording. I was new to recording. I'd never recorded in a studio like that before, and that was kind of a daunting thing because it was at Energy, which is where Linkin Park I think recorded everything, or at least mixed everything up until like I want to say Minutes to Midnight or A Thousand Suns, but I'm not sure. Um, After that, they went and I think that's when they started using like personal studios. Like everybody, I know Minutes to Midnight, Linkin Park broke the entire songwriting process down into like different rigs, so everybody had their own Pro Tools and everything.
Oh,
They go off and write all. I don't know if you know that.
I did
I saw this on Linkin Park TV because I watched LPTV
that.
all over
Explains
again.
some of the shift in the style of the
Yeah,
music.
it
A
basically
lot of
all 6 of them wrote their own songs, and then they came together and spliced them all together. So they had all their own material, like their own DAWs. They were basically trying to write as many songs as possible, and
cool.
then they brought them together and were like, "Oh, we like this part, put them together." And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah,
But
I like
I
the
don't
later pop stuff. I even love One More Light. I don't know why people talk so much shit about it.
honestly the reason I talk the most shit about One More Light is because of the circumstance.
Oh,
Because
no.
I was there for some of it. So it's
Yeah,
like I know a lot of people love that album and I always want to say, you know, like it's not bad to like that album.
no.
But as the kid in the situation, it's kind of
Right.
a
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? But let's see. When I found out about like the song process, I basically had a week, I think, or 2. Like Sean basically was like, "Hey, you want to come in and record this? We're gonna do it." And I was like, or we've been doing it. I know for him it was a longer process because for as irritating as Sean can be to me, he definitely did face adversity in trying to get the deal figured out for the album and trying to record the whole thing. So you know, not only was I there in the place that Linkin Park cut its teeth,
Oh, shit.
but also I was there with like 2 weeks of advance notice, and I had not been singing at the time either. So what's funny is I will say, I've been saying recently, just like flat out, I don't think I was actually mixed into the Soul Song final cut for the song. I can't hear me at all. Like, I know what I sound like. I listen to myself for a living. Everything that almost everything that I post, I rewatch
Yeah.
just so that I'm clear on what I did and did not do. You know what I mean?
Do that too.
And I can't hear myself. And I also listen to music for a living. That's literally what I spend
Yeah.
my time doing. And I don't hear myself in the mix. And I hear stuff in people's mixes all the time that I never heard before. I'll be listening to like, you know, like a Tyler the Creator album like years later, and I'll be like, oh, I just heard that ad lib for the first time, or there was this whole talkie part behind the song I didn't even realize. And that's like 2 or 3 years on in the future. So like I have a pretty good ear and I don't hear myself. So I just kind of feel like either I'm not jaded anymore either. Like I listen to all the Linkin Park albums. Like I know all the songs by heart. Like I become a real scholar about it. So I just really don't feel like I'm in the song, and I feel like I kind of got gaslit about that. But in honesty about like the entire process, meaning not just Amends, but the the stripped album, which is the acoustic album they released somehow in between Amends and the Phoenix. I was just kind of like, what is going on? And at that time, Sean had told me, he literally told me, he was like, I will bring you back for the next album. And I said, okay, well, keep me in mind because I would like that. And he never asked me back,
Weird.
which was
Like,
really weird.
but with you, you know
Well,
what I mean?
he didn't, I can't say certain things about the album at this time,
Yeah.
but I will say if you look at it, certain things may become apparent. But also, I talked to him later, and this was in March of 23 when he tried to gaslight me into that fist fight.
Yeah.
I had asked him about that. I was like, well, why did you never have me back? Like, that kind of made me feel away. Like, on the outside, you don't look very good. Like, you look like
And
you're
they
kind
look
of messing around.
shady.
And he was like, oh, I can see why you feel that. Like, he told me, he's like, when I told him how I saw things, he was like, oh, I see how you feel that way. He's like, I understand. And he said, I didn't let anybody come back for the album. Like, I wanted to have a fresh sound. And now even at the time, I was like, this is not real. Like, the same artist could make 5 albums and they all sound different.
Right.
It's the same artist, people have their friends on the same album all the time. They don't even have to put them as a feature. They put them as like a producer credit.
Yeah.
And the whole point of being a musician is like make new sounds. So for him to be like, oh, well, I didn't want you on the album because I wanted everything fresh. That literally makes no sense. To me, like as an artist, it just doesn't make sense. Like,
The bullshit excuse.
I don't get it. And then right after that, he walked back on everything that he said he thought about what I was saying, the evidence I showed him, and then by the end of the month, he was gaslighting me into a fist fight. So it was just like super bizarre. And at the end, I found the entire thing disrespectful. But I was actually a supporter of it for
A few months before that, they were going to come on my podcast and just never came on.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Well, I mean,
same with Samantha and Draven, but
oh, really?
Yeah, I'd asked too many questions about the situation on the phone with Samantha, and she got weird. So
yeah, she did that to me too.
okay.
Yeah.
Really sweet. We like spent months planning the podcast, and the whole plan was if it went well, Draven was going to come on too. I was going to have her, but it just didn't happen.
Well,
and I
that's
feel
interesting too, because was that around the time that F With Me came out, or?
It was around the time the Grey Days album came out, where they had taken all those old recordings of your dad and made them new. It was really weird.
Oh, so it was like 2020-ish?
Yeah. Fall 22.
Yeah.
And I was working on an 80s pop rock album for the Dreaming Insomniacs, where I was going pretty heavy on some themes. Like one of the verses is like, I have made a vow not to end my life. So I want you to know now, if they kill me with a knife and say that I did myself, just know that I put up a good fight. And in the end, I knew what was right. Like, the fact that us as musicians and artists had to come to that point is really fucking sad.
Yeah, that is interesting. I have been repeatedly and thoroughly baffled by their responses to me. Like, Sam said, I approached her about the whole DNA thing because she tried to pull the whole, like, you're not even Chester's wanted first son.
Oh my God.
Not even your dad kind of thing. But he chose to be your dad, so that's the thing. And I was like, okay. And then somebody sent me a tweet, and it was that from the past when I had like pissed her off before, I guess.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize because I wasn't following her at the time, and I had sent her the message. This was the same day that the whole thing with CC Woods and her went down when I tried to join their podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And the same day, because that's what we started talking about. I had sent her the message, and I was like, Sam, what is this? And she was like, well, she had said something about like the illegitimacy of my likeness, and I was just like, why did you say
That's
this?
bullshit.
Like, see, I'm trying to.
Look at you.
What's that?
I said that's bullshit. Look at you.
I know, right? I know. It's like almost, you can't really deny it or dispute it. It's like
No.
crazy. I mean, either I'm the most intense empath that possibly has been born in this time, or because, you know, then I just like literally morphed into someone else,
Yeah.
or I'm actually related to him somehow. And he's probably my father. That's probably how.
I
There are other theories, but
but
what's
I didn't
that?
know you're a musician too. I love that, man. I love it.
Say that again.
I
Sorry.
know that you're also a musician. I love that.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge musician. I have a whole decade's worth of musical career that nobody knows about because nobody bothered shining a light on it, and I didn't care enough. I wrote music just to write
Please
music, but
send. I will listen. I'm an
yeah,
avid of music.
I'll send you some stuff because we're actually today on YouTube going to go through some stuff because I'm putting together a mixtape now and moving forward with my music, and
Tell you something.
I got stuff that I wanted to just play for the audience.
I want to tell you something I think you'll really appreciate.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saving this for the right moment. So I think it was August of 2017. We were slated to play our first like festival gig, and it was at this like shitty place in Brockton, Massachusetts. Because that's so we turned it into this like dead artist tribute show. So we played "Watching the Wheels" by John Lennon
Mm.
and "Here for You" Idea, and we closed it with "Like a Stone" and "Numb."
Like a
And
Stone, such a good song.
of your dad and
That's
Chris.
like if I ever try to like tell people about Chris, I'm always like, you know that da 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 da. You know that song, guys? Da da da. They're like, no, no, I don't. Na na na. And then it's like, you don't. Oh, it's called Like a Stone, and they're always like, no, I have no idea. But then I play it, and then they hear like other Audio Slave
Yeah.
songs, and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, I know what Cochise is, and I'm like, of course, you know, like the hardest sounding song on the album,
Yeah.
but Like a Stone is such a good song. I'm so happy you played that, and to play that next to Numb is like saying something. You know, that's
And
like that's
I
a, that's a
put on
statement.
Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell
Yeah, yeah,
beginning of
that's
each
beautiful.
performance, and we got standing ovations for it. It was the biggest way we could say "fuck you" to who did what they did to them.
Yeah, that's wild, and I love that because you know, a lot of people like to say, "Oh, it's Chester's death anniversary on the 20th," but like, but what about Chris?
Both
You know, like, isn't it weird that he died on Christmas?
same exact way.
Like,
That's 9 broken ribs, man.
no,
Missing hair, blood at the scene. And then the thing with your dad, this fucking bunch of red flags there too. So
there are a million
why?
red flags,
So,
and the date's coming up too.
oh, this is
I've had like the most emotional last week, and
like I
part of it is
and
the 20th coming
what
up.
are what can I say?
Yeah, there's a I try my best to not speak in code, but sometimes it's just better to
Yeah,
use other art to say something. It's like,
yeah.
how many times has a guy got to write an album about the same fucking thing before you
Let's just
start
say,
realizing?
okay, I'll speak in code. Let's say the driver is curious,
Yeah.
and that's what pissed off Samantha, and the fact that I had mentioned our conversations to my ex-girlfriend.
Uh,
But I think the driver did it, if you know what I'm
the
saying.
driver
Uh,
is a very interesting question. I'm very curious why management never bothered to offer a statement on why they changed the rideshare service by 4 hours.
Jamie, I'm in audio engineering school. That voice is 100% matched to a member in the band.
100%.
The the one who raps.
Really? I heard that recently. Somebody
Yeah,
brought that up to me. I said, you know, I don't think that I didn't hear that when I
I've
heard the
known
voice.
that since I first listened to the recording, and then I looked at the waiting for the end video and all the symbolism they put into that. And then I read Samantha's book. Even though she talked a lot of shit about your dad, she put a lot of valid points in that book about things.
Yeah, I even asked Sam about that. She said she said she didn't include me and what's her face as my mother Just like she just didn't acknowledge us at all
Yeah.
officially. And she's like, I pointed out that she had like not said anything about us, and that was super strange. And she was like, well,
I
I'm giving you the opportunity to do that. And I was like, in what way? You literally didn't talk about us at all. Half of your relationship with my dad, if not all of it, is literally around me.
Yeah, I really
Like that, it's
like
me.
that. I really didn't like that book, Jamie.
I didn't like
I'll,
it either. And I told her.
I'll listen to it on the audio tape.
I
Like
listened
it
to it.
really just all shit talk about your dad.
I thought it was an interesting book, and I'm not bashing Sam necessarily, but I will say that it's poorly written, and for a
Yeah,
book about her being a rock star wife, she talks almost nothing about the actual rock star, almost
yeah,
entirely about herself. And also, I know certain things about the timeline, it doesn't fit, and also she completely X'd me out of her book, and then later, after I reconnected with her, by my choice, which is all documented on Instagram, told me that she gave it to me as a way for me to have a way to speak. Like, oh, I didn't want to tell your story for you. No, you know what you need to tell is the story, because guess what? Now you're saying there are 0 paternity tests that were verified, that there was no acknowledgement of my actual DNA connection to Chester, that he didn't want me, and all these other things. And you're saying this publicly. And also, there's a huge problem with me and my mom, because my mom doesn't want to tell me what happened back then. Not that she necessarily remembers, but she also.
Also, them in the book saying like, oh, if the kids ever want to talk to me, they can talk to me, and then
I did. Yeah,
I will support you guys having your feelings and talking out loud about what you think. And then she's like, actually, shut the fuck up, and I hate you. And
Yeah,
I
literally.
don't care about your feelings, and I don't need to tell you anything. And I was like, damn, that was.
No, yeah, I literally brought it up. That's why I reached out to her. I thought, well, I'm going to reconnect with Samantha, because in her book she says it. Even if she didn't say it to me, even if she didn't, say it to the world. Her book, but like really, like how many people actually read the entire thing or have chosen to do that? It would be easier just to say it online, where everybody
yeah,
can see it. Like, why not tweet it or something so that somebody can go back and look? But like, I thought that was super weird, and I was like, why did that happen? And I read Sean's book, and I said to both of them separately, Samantha and Sean, I said, your guys' books are terrible. I said, they're not only poorly written, but also like they don't hold up to an actual timeline, and they don't talk about some of the things they should be talking about the correct way. Like, Sean does not really talk about Chester at all. Look at Chester's forward. If you know anything about Chester or Gray Days, go back, make a timeline of the ages Chester put in his forward. Put years to that, and then go see how much of it is authentic. Because in my opinion, I read through it multiple times. I even went over this last year. There are times in Chester's forward that are nonsense. They don't make sense. It's not what it is. That's not the timeline. I think in one of the instances he had said that No Sun Today, which was the second Grey Days album, it was released, I believe, in 1998, was actually released like 2 or 3 years earlier. And like that kind of stuff is insane. And I also pointed out that Sean took the last word of Chester's foreword, or the last sentence, so to speak, word, and then rewrote it with different words, and then used it to sell his book. If you go read the book and you look at the cover, it has the sentence. And then if you go to the end of the foreword and you read the sentence, it's not the same sentence. It's similar, but it's not the same. And so he literally, while Chester was alive, manipulated Chester's words to sell his book.
that's fucked up.
Which he self-edited and self-published. And his entire response to that was, Jamie, I've never written a book before, so you just got to give me credit, where credit's due. And I'm like, that's literally not good enough. If you were writing a book about if your book is a documentarian effort of your empire and its development, then why are you so shoddy with dates?
Mm.
Then why are you not talking about Chester a certain way? What is this?
For the very people that have a problem with milking Chester's name for money.
No, and he was alive.
They're
How
doing the
crazy is
same
that?
thing.
Oh, sorry, you cut out, I think.
Oh, no, it's all right. I was just saying they're doing the same thing.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's what I said. I was like, and also like the book Sam wrote is called Falling Love Notes. And it's like, what about this is notes about love?
Yeah.
I've literally I've read this book, and knowing you, I know you've lied at least 3 times. And
I
you've
was just
chosen to
calm down.
cut out.
I had a legitimate interview prepared with not really invasive questions. They were very respectful. You know what I mean? And then
I
just
believe it.
ghosted me, and I never heard from her again.
Yeah,
I even tried out months later.
it,
Nothing.
you won't get it. It's like, she had this I think it's a iHeart Radio interview
Mm-hmm.
where she presents her book, and then she at the very end goes, "Something's not right. Somebody help us. Something's not right. Somebody help us." And it's like, okay, well, how do you want people to help? Because when people ask you questions or come off to you in a way that you don't like, you freak out, and then you isolate and you separate, and
Yeah.
then you go, "That's none of your fucking business." The
Yeah.
same way that Shinoda does it, and the same way that Sean does it.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you guys all tiptoeing around very real questions? Like, when I found out that Sean was holding prioritized information, specifically information that was Chester's personal information for over 6 years, that not only validated but defined the very conspiracy theories he was ripping other people about, I was like, how could you do that? And he said, well, it's none of their business.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, but you just said that all the conspiracy theories that people have been postulating on this entire time, they're true. But all these people just were told that they're crazy, they should shut the fuck up and go away, and all these
Yeah.
other things. And then you genuinely created, just like Mike did, just like Sam
But
did, cognitive dissonance.
yeah, Mike also worships Jay-Z. So,
Well, there's a lot to say about Jay.
and then there's pictures of Mike with Mr. Schmilschlinton. So
That's true. And I brought that up recently as well. I was like,
yeah,
how is it does nobody care that the Clinton Foundation infused Mike Shinoda's recycling company
that's
and Haley
the
with
thing.
money to bring it back online, literally the same year that Chester died? And
They're
that they were giving one-to-one interviews
involved.
through the complex together?
They're directly involved in the fact that now Trump can't get in trouble for his crimes. Neither can. It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about the recent shooting.
It's fucked up too. I mean, I'm on the neutral political perspective, right? But I don't really like Trump that much. I never have. But it's still that's a senior citizen. That's still our former president. You don't fucking shoot someone.
I don't
That's
honestly
it.
think he was shot. I just don't think it happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think it happened, and that's because of what I know about my situation.
Yeah, I'm
I don't think.
surprised about it, just given the fact that the news outlets openly showed the blood, and they never do.
Yeah, they got really good photos too.
Huh?
They got really good
Yeah,
photos too.
and then how the guy was that close, and they're screaming, "Hey, he's up there!" Like,
Yeah, I heard he had like no social media presence and a bunch of things, and I got to say, like, isn't it interesting that Trump got away with the insurrection and all these other things, and yet they're still calling him Mr. President, and yet they're still trying to find ways to break the rules to make him president again,
by
and
the way,
somehow he was shot in the ear?
you got all these people trying to
What?
blame the that's planning this shooting, but the guy who shot Trump was a Republican.
That's what I'm saying. It didn't happen. Political parties don't exist.
No,
They don't.
bro,
It's a game. They go. Oh no! Look, it's Democratic. It's Republican. Everybody get mad at each other, and it's like, no, it's a human problem.
yeah,
And that's the thing. Is like, what's interesting. This is a fun fact I never got to share with anybody, but G and I took DNA tests. I think I shared it briefly actually. When you said that, like, it clicked that I had mentioned, because that I talked about the DNA dispute, which is something that Samantha had brought up. So
which is
when I did the
bullshit.
DNA test, my famous relatives, Chester didn't show up.
Huh?
Chester did not come up as my father. Like, he just didn't pop up at all. Like, there was you'd think like, oh, he's really famous. In the famous people's tab, which they had for some reason, just to show you, oh, you have these like distant relatives. I was expecting to see him, and he wasn't there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But you know who was there? Oddly enough,
Who?
Bill fucking Clinton.
And that guy that they said was
And
Chester's dad.
you think Podesta was on that?
No, they weren't.
Oh, hold
I
on.
think Podesta was on it. It was really weird. Like, we were sitting there like, what the fuck? Why is Bill Clinton
Huh?
here, but my dad isn't? And it was just very weird.
Either
And
the test was
yeah,
rigged, and they're fucking with you, or there's more to the story.
there's a lot more to the story, period. And also, of course,
Yeah.
these DNA companies, they don't really care like that.
Yeah. Well, hey, if it makes you feel any better, if that is true, my mother's father did horrible things to all of his kids, and I will never call him my grandfather. He's been dead a long time.
Oh, you get where I'm
So
coming from then.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we understand.
very weird. And I know a lot about this whole thing. It's really things happened to me directly connected to this when I was a kid. Some MK Ultra shit. So I'm a direct example
Oh
of
yeah,
somebody. It
I'm a firm believer that MK
still,
Ultra was an
still goes on.
experiment that has become a
It
culture, and that's it.
still goes
I
on.
try to
It.
tell people all the time. I'm like, okay, if you
Are
guys
we?
really want to see what I'm talking
How old
about,
are you,
28.
Jamie?
I just turned 28 in May.
Okay, so when we were kids, they were medicating kids. That's what they were
Yeah.
doing, right? But I was special, and my dad, he worked for a union to get money, the United Transportation Union. He had to go to politicians.
Mm.
One of those conventions took place in 2000, that was hosted by Mr. Schmilch-Linton. And I've had memories come back. Actually, around the time I was supposed to interview Samantha, I lost my mind because I remembered it all. It all came
Hey,
back.
that happens to me
I was
sometimes.
I was taken to an underground facility where Mr. Schmilch-Linton did things to me out of spite because I didn't recognize him because I'm too young to remember when he was Schmesident. Is that
Well,
good enough?
I,
The first
I hear
time
that.
with anybody ever
Thank you
public.
for sharing that. That's
Yeah,
wild.
like
I
I
would love
told
to
you,
talk to you more about
I'm
that too.
connected to this.
I think that live stream could be challenging to share that information just because of the people involved.
That's why I said
But
Clinton. I didn't say
I know,
Hillary.
I know, I know. I didn't hear nothing.
I didn't hear
Just
either.
the way they
But
don't hear anything.
my point is, I think this is why for the past 7 years I never knew your dad, but I've warned him.
Okay.
It's been hard
Yeah.
because not only while this shit was happening to me, his music was on the radio, helping me get through shit. You
Oh, yeah.
know?
You know what's really interesting when you start to do research on Linkin Park is
Yeah.
exactly how and when their brand new hit singles come out throughout time in general. Like,
Really?
which one was it? It was something off Hybrid Theory, obviously, but I think it was like In the End or um, what was another big one off
What
that
about
one?
the crawling having the in the video looking like Ghislaine Maxwell in the video?
That's fucking weird. But also, this song was released like the day of the anthrax attack.
Weird.
Yeah, and then but like weird shit like that happens all the time. Like I just found out the other day the Talking to Myself music video off of One More Light was released the day that Chester died.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It's super
I thought
backhanded, by the way.
I was pissed. I was like, I saw the news that I saw Linkin Park had just uploaded a video. I'm like, okay, this is where the disrespect starts.
Well, it's like why wouldn't you take it down? But then you also have other questions like, okay, why did Linkin Park do that? But
Mhm.
and then why did band management decide not to offer any acknowledgement of changing the ride share? Why does nobody at Linkin Park want to talk about whether it was a photo shoot or an insurance commercial they were working on? It can't really
Yeah.
be that big of a deal, could it?
And
Or
then,
or
like,
even like the driver, where did the driver go?
thank you.
Why is that guy never talk about shit? He never came back up again and was like, hey, I wonder what's going on. Or hey, I made the call, look at me. There's
Yeah.
no ego, there's no desire to be seen or heard. You don't even know the guy's name, and then he's just
That's
gone. You can't
because the
look.
voice is a match to Schmeich Spinoda.
That's really interesting. I would
Yeah.
love to hear your theory on that if you have like a
I
side by side comparison. I'd love to hear it.
theory. I have a very, very, very solid theory of how that went down and
Yeah.
a reason why.
I
And
would
I've
love to
done
hear
more.
it because I know
How
for a fact that right before he passed, he was hanging out with Bill Clinton. And his sister Tobia said some very interesting things, which I would like to take a moment to publicly acknowledge that Toby, my aunt Chester's sister, did post on one of my reels recently, like a couple of days ago, and I tried to get her to answer as to why she said this. But what she said was that it was the fans' fault that this was all public. That if it weren't for them minding their own not minding their own business, then we wouldn't be where we are right now. But the truth of the matter is that I brought myself here. I made this conversation happen because I wanted it to
yeah,
happen, and I am talking to the fans right now. So it's I don't know. She said something like, go find your own life, in parentheses, and deaths, and I was like, that's an extremely veiled and potentially violent and offensive thing to say. And I'm going to comment on it, like literally comment, but I need to say here as well, like she's the one who isn't here right now. You know what I mean? Like I've been trying to get her to talk publicly for a long time, trying to get her to
yeah.
take accountability for what her husband has done in the past online. She was not doing that. And she has refused to answer my phone call She has refused to answer the text I sent over the DMs. I just don't understand why she said it. I don't agree with it, and I want everybody to know that.
Yeah.
We are not on the same page. She is not speaking for me. We are not talking about the same thing, and we are not handling it the same way.
Yeah.
So I just needed to say that. But also, she told me, and this ties in perfectly to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Last year, almost a year to the day now, because she called me the night of the 6-year death anniversary to tell me that Chester had called her when he was alive towards the end. And I've already said this multiple times online, but I'll say it again here because you brought up Schmitten. And she said to me, she said, Chester called me. He would call me and talk to me about things that people didn't want him to talk about. And he would have these burner phones because people in his life would be changing his numbers. They'd be fielding his calls, all those things. So he wasn't allowed to talk to a lot. He wasn't allowed to talk to certain
He was
people.
that
I'm not allowed to say certain things.
handler.
Very handily.
Fuck.
And basically, she told me, she said flat out, like, and I'm going to tell this story because she's not going to tell it. And if she wants somebody to clarify on it, then she can come out and go ahead and say something about why she said what she said and interact with my material the way she chose to. Then there's no way to get around it. So here it is, since you brought up Schmitten, I will tell you what she said. Again, for those of you who have heard it, here it is. And for those of you who haven't, buckle in because it's fucked. She said, Chester would call me and he would talk to me about having dinner with the Clintons. He said it was happening so frequently he was repulsed by them. He could not be in the same room as them anymore. She said that he would call and tell her about it and how disgusted he was, and that he was very frustrated because he didn't want to hang out with them, but the guys in Lincoln Park did. And then he said that he can't tell her what he's working on. But I have a huge feeling that for some reason it has something to do with his pioneering of a human trafficking defense effort in Orange County in 2014 with the district attorney of Orange County, Tony Rackakis, is one who's been trying to tell people that Chester did this in 2014, less than 3 years before he died. And almost to the day, the confirmation that Tony Rackakis shows, he died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Then
So it's very weird.
You have rooters and all these PolitiFact sites trying to say that Chester and Chris weren't involved in that documentary. No, they weren't involved in that documentary. They weren't at all. And by the way, Reuters is funded and owned by George Soros. So take that with what you
There's
will.
But lot to talk about the way that it's institutionalized for sure.
Working on shutting that shit down. And what started all of this, unfortunately, was in the last few weeks that Chris was alive. He was running his mouth on stage about it, talking about how modern day slavery still exists. Mm-hmm. It happens to women and children and men all around the world today, and it needs to be put to see something, say something, and do something.
Apparently, yeah, no, you're right. I do know that he was very vocal about it. And the thing that's really interesting. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, he was extra vocal in the last few weeks of life, like even more so than he had ever been.
Yeah.
Like extra.
Well, I was watching a comparison of his shows because somebody was trying to say that, or a lot of people are trying to say he looked and sounded different than usual. But the fact of the matter, too, is that when you put him side by side with all these shows, and then you put the actual recounting of that final show back to back with other reporters, it doesn't add up at all. Like people are literally creating and losing an image.
Performing right. He's missing that chunk of hair. There's blood in the back of his head. People got pictures of him at the show. So there was a struggle before even his death.
Isn't it interesting that none of those photos have made it into the public media? Like
I found them, but it took.
Where did you find them?
I Google. You gotta really dig though.
Oh yeah, see, there you go. It's hidden in the algorithm.
Finding Chris and your dad's autopsies was a pain in the fucking ass. Once I
I still haven't seen the photos. I can't find them.
The fuck?
I have not ever seen the photos, and I waited for a long time to read the autopsy report specifically because I thought there would be photos. Because the thing is that TMZ, when Chester died, they were trying to leak all the photos. They even got the belt online before they were it shut down. And so it was like one of those things where I was like, I don't think I want to see that. And then I looked at it and I was like, wait, there are no photos here.
Yeah.
Wait, I've never seen the body. I don't know what this is. I'm told that he's in a jar, but I don't know about that. I don't know because I wasn't even around him for 6 months before that. So, you know, when, but to go back to what Toby said, to bring it back to the Haiti thing, she told me that Chester had specifically said that he was working on something with his, quote, buddy Chris. He did not say Cornell. With his, quote, buddy Chris, and that he can't talk to her about it because she might lose her life. But when she finds out what he did, she's going to be very proud of him. And that in specific, he had seen what was on the hidden server in Hillary's basement. And that he had his mind blown, and he literally couldn't say what it was because he couldn't describe it. He had to get evidence. That's what Toby said to me. And I said, what are you talking about, Toby? I said, it's been 6 years. Why have you not brought this to my attention at all, or to anybody? And she's like, well, actually I did. And I was like, you did? When? And she was like, well, I actually interacted with a group from Europe. They came over, they were fans, and they had, I was going to show them, I was going to tell them. And they were intercepted by Warner Music Group. Weird. And they were sent back, and they were told not to come back, and they were told not to engage. And then she was interacted with by Warner Music Group.
No, I don't know if this is
and
true.
Shut up, basically.
The research I've done, allegedly, what really sparked Chris's tirade about talking about this on stage, that sparked this whole thing, was Tom DeLonge, because he had a connection with Podesta, given the whole NASA thing for the alien shit he does.
Okay.
Essentially had sent Chris Cornell an email video of the Frazzle Drip thing.
Oh, you want to know what's super fucking weird? Is that the same time that the Clinton Foundation, and I've said this before too. So, and by the way, everybody who's watching who wants to know why I was so fiery last year, it's because when I went to stand up for my friend Trish and talk about the conservatorship that seems to make up Chester's existence in the most subtle ways, I ended up facing attempted hacks. I was hacked and attempted 10 times. Throughout the entire time I was talking live. And that's because I was sharing information. I was talking about how Linkin Park, in their own words, have actually used the Freemasonic alphabet, actually do use codes in their music videos and their music, that they are doing X, Y, and Z. And I brought Sean up as well. And the reason that I did everything I did, the reason everybody was so confused is because when I got online, I knew that there was somebody who was going to shut me down because of all the things I'd researched. I knew that there would be somebody who would try to make me look crazy. They would try to attack me, and they would try to, at the most intense, aggressive way, take every bit of my legitimacy away. They would try to stimulate me into a reactionary response. And that's why I said, okay, well, someone's trying to hack me. I don't know who you are, but you're a bitch, and I'm going to let you know that I feel that way, because now I'm going to have to do everything I didn't want to do the way I have to do it now, because I didn't want to do this. This was supposed to be clean. This was supposed to be respectful. This was supposed to be slow. This was supposed to be inclusive. Now it's exclusive. It's fiery as fuck, and I got to tell you guys not only that I'm not suicidal, but I also have to tell you why I have to fucking say that, which is it got me into trouble with a lot of people. And also it confused a lot of people, you know, like Sean, in terms of getting in trouble with people. It was getting in trouble with people like Sean. And we saw how that turned out this year. And it resulted in this kind of confusion because I had to tell people I'm not suicidal, and this is why. That's why my bio is like that. That's why the other day when I repeated my bio on Threads, somebody was like, oh my God, you're looking for attention. What the fuck's wrong with you? Everybody else in your life can have their own platform and they don't have to bring your dad up. And I was like, wait, but they all do, but intrinsically and also extrinsically. And you know what's also, you know, interesting about the entire thing is I literally said, this is happening to me. This is why I'm saying this. So I already knew all this was going to go on. And then, you know, to make matters more interesting, there are these Clinton, I'm just going to say it because everybody already knows, like what you can't erase it at this point.
Oh,
there's nothing I can really hide from. I've been too transparent. That person who was going to hack me, people were like, why don't you just block them? Why don't you just change your password? I said, because they're using an email that I have on my bio for everyone to use to contact me. So one, it's an open channel from me to other people, and they're not going to impede that. Two, I'm not dealing with an anonymous hacker. I'm dealing with the people who own the fucking platform. Okay? If they wanted me gone, they would have done it. If they thought they could do it, they would have done it. This person is literally just razzling me. That's all they're doing. They're razzing me. They think that they're to get a reactory response out of me, but I've been planning for this for years. So, to bring it all back to the Clinton situation, I knew it was that serious when I came online. I knew that's what was going to happen. That's why I dripped it. That's why there was a drip from the faucet before there was the faucet being turned on, and this is the faucet being turned on. So with that being said, it's really interesting that you have these connections to that issue, that the issue is so prevalent, because isn't it weird that Chester, the year that he died, he wrote Cross Off and then it was never released until 2019. He wrote Cross Off in April. The song he wrote with Mark Morton about coming back from the madness, swinging through life like a clenched fist, fuck sanity, I want to bleed, all I feel is pain and misery. That song he wrote in April. He wrote it a month and a half after I told him I was suicidal.
Yeah, and a lot of people try to utilize the words that Chester sang as a defense of the narrative that he committed suicide. Mike Shinoda wrote a lot of those lyrics.
That's what I'm saying. I tell people that all the time. Like, you could think One More Light is what it is, but also you have to realize
Mike wrote most of that fucking
he
album.
wrote most of that album, and also Chester was dealing with his own problems to such a degree, his own even substance use issues, that he re-recorded every vocal.
Yeah.
You know how I know that? Because he said it to me.
I love that. He shared that with
He just
you?
talked about it. He was like, I didn't like the way I sounded.
That's
so
cool.
I went back and re-recorded it. And then on top of that, what's even crazier is that not only was the song not released until 2019, but there was released with no ceremony. So yes, his name was used to feature it and promote it. But Mark Morton never talked about when it was recorded or what it means. He didn't go on and say, Chester said this right before he died. He didn't do that. That's very weird. That's why I said, where's the accountability at last year? And then here we are, and we're still going down the timeline. So that's in February, I told Chester that I wasn't feeling good and I didn't want to be here anymore. In April, he recorded Cross Off. And then by the time May rolled around, he was promoting Hillary in the campaign against Trump. He, at the same time, the FBI was looking into Hillary Clinton and her unsanctioned secret server in her basement, which she deleted purposefully over 33,000 articles from. Yeah, 13 phones. She was being investigated for breaking like literally every rule.
And you got all emails about sacrificing chicken to Moloch and
well, okay, so it gets even weirder because at the same time they found the server. At the same time, the DNC was there was a hack on the DNC, which showed that they were all lobbyists and that they were all promising each other payoffs for enforcing policy and paying off certain fees. Like, I'll give you X amount of money for you taking this position. That was happening. And then at the same time, John Podesta's Gmail got leaked, and that's where Pizzagate came from. So it all happened at the same time. And then we'll get back to that because this comes back to exactly what you're talking about. And this is where people started to conflate John Podesta is Chester Bennington's father. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying that that's where this started, is because those three things happened. And at the same time, Trump was doing his bullshit. So imagine how confusing that was. And then he turns around and he's like, go Hillary, go Hillary, go Hillary. He's literally saying that on Twitter. And then he's showing Bill Clinton around the Haiti facility. Right. And then at the same time, he's saying, I've learned that the true change comes from within. I'm not playing this game anymore. And he made a verbal statement. We need peace. We need justice. We need love. We don't need pride. We don't need vengeance. We don't need these things. He's talking about reconstructing the entire thing. And so within that time period, Sean Dell released his book. At the very end of it, he reveals the foreword's fucked up. That's Chester's. He uses the last line of the foreword to sell the book. He rewrites it. That's fucked up. And at the very end of the book, he releases, which is why I brought up the Freemasons last year, the information that he chose to be a Freemason and has been studying under the Prometheus Lodge in Gilbert, Arizona, which is where the Mormon temple is, by the way. I know because I lived there. I went to middle school there, and I went out of there from there to Tempe to high school, where I went to school where Chester used to perform at the Electric Ballroom, which is now the New School for the Arts and Academics. It's a charter school.
Somewhere that one of the members of Gray Days is involved with the Masons.
Well, so one of them is Sean Dowdell. At the very least, is Sean Dowdell. And on the book, he's doing the thing. He's doing the hand sign, and he's sideways. Look at the cover of the book. He's doing the Illuminati diamond right in front of your face.
Yeah.
And what's crazy about that is that
Podcast. Jesus Christ! Look at the things I talk about.
yeah, and
All of this.
I know nobody wants to talk about this.
Nobody
Nobody.
wants to talk about it. Especially
That's why when I was with talking to Sean about the DLC deal, the one that he tried to gaslight me into a fist fight over, I was like, I have no say in conservator like decisions. Like I don't have say in Chester's like name and likeness and the way it's used. So there's no way that I could have made a decision for you. So the fact that you're even talking about this is asinine because we both know that nobody wants me on that committee. Nobody would allow me because I would say no, as I've been saying no. So in May,
this when they put out that new song this year and last year, I thought that was really disrespectful.
I find that mind boggling. Like, okay, it's different to do an extended release for Linkin Park because they had an underground, they had a fan base that prioritized interactions that provided them with secret stuff. Like only the LPU gets certain demos. And that
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, make a demo album then.
they're
But don't
but
put new stuff out. Put the
they're
old stuff out. You already did the LP re-release, whatever. But like maybe add some other stuff, like way back from the Zero tapes or something like that. But don't release brand new singles. That's crazy.
so
That was my opinion.
look, you're Chester's firstborn son, and you're not seeing a fucking dime of it. Look how wrong that
Oh,
is.
I don't get anything from any of these things. No.
Okay,
I'm totally disconnected.
the year after this happened, and then subsequent years, you got Mike going on podcast saying that if he was part of the Illuminati, he'd have better numbers. And then the year after that,
He is though.
He does have good numbers.
He has good numbers. He has an incredible net worth, and he still has a career.
died. He was getting 200,000 views a video after
Yeah.
Chester.
Yeah, he has one of the highest viewed videos of all time. And it happens to be the music video where, I'm sorry to point it out, Linkin Park uses the Freemasonic alphabet to embed actual messages into their set pieces.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the solo career after. He tried to say on podcasts that he's not part of it because he'd have better numbers. And then after that, he started getting millions.
Please send that to me. I would love to see that because he was. You know who also was a part of that entire group?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, god damn. And guess who produced Mike's first solo album, Rising Tide? Jay-Z. Guess what album they made together when he was only supposed to be doing a couple of songs for an MTV TV special, and they destroyed the entire program because they wrote an album instead. That was called Collision Course. They still won a Grammy.
If Mike could suck Jay's dick, he would.
How was he gonna say he would have been a bigger celebrity when they were like huge?
Literally, he can't say that he never made it like that because he absolutely did.
Also,
You know, Jamie, I love the Scream movies, but when they brought him in for the 6th movie to have his single be like the title song, I was pissed. I was like, oh, okay, now Mike's just trying to be Chester at this point. Well, okay, all right.
Well, is that true, or is Mike the one who always pushed them into movies?
I'm saying like
Scream is not the first franchise that they were involved in. We're talking about something like Little Nicky, and also which is an Adam Sandler film from way back in the day. And then there's also like the first 4 Transformers movies.
Yeah, and then for some reason the Miami Vice movie with the Jay-Z thing, the encore.
Oh, really? I don't think I don't think you recognize that.
Theme for the Miami Vice movie that was horribly miscast with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx decided to use the Numb Encore mashup for its theme song.
That's so interesting. I don't think I came across that in my research.
It's not a very good movie, but it's there.
G was saying something.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Just that when you guys were talking about the timeline, I was thinking, maybe I'm wrong, that wasn't that the time too that they had put him in rehab and been like, he's on all the stuff again. He's like, actually, I'm sober, and they told me I'm sober, but I need to stay.
Oh, that was another. No, that brings me back to Toby because Toby told me, and so did Susan. And I'll say this. I'll just say it out loud because it needs to be said. Toby had told me, and so did Susan. I believe it was also, they clarified this, it was also last death anniversary. It was the 6th one, the same time they told me about the Clinton stuff.
Yeah.
That when in February of 2016, when Chester was shipped off to Cirque Lodge in Utah, which is a rehabilitation center, they send a lot of celebrities. for his substance use issues. This is where the whole antidepressants conversation comes up around when you talk about his death. It's like there are 3 different narratives about the antidepressants and when he got off of them and who knew about it and who didn't. Legitimately, go look at the articles. They tell different things. But
the family also has different narratives. Like, there's no actual. Everyone's like, but what's the real truth, Jamie? And it's like, I don't know.
I don't know. You didn't tell me. You won't tell me. I don't know what the truth is.
How do you trust it when you have Talinda posting that Chester didn't kill himself and that she slept with Mike and all that stuff, and then saying that she got hacked? We all know she did that.
I'm not at liberty to talk about that. But I can receive it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Fair.
I can receive it, but I can't say anything about that. But what I will say is that Toby and Susan had said to me that when Chester got to Cirque Lodge, they tried to let him go.
Oh, like kick him from the band?
No, they tried to kick him out of the rehab.
Oh.
Because he was sober. He did not have a problem.
Right.
And they said that categorically the rehabilitation crew said that he did not fit the intensity that their other clients do, and that he really didn't have a reason to be there. So they were like, you should just kind of go because this is kind of expensive. Yeah. And he said, no, you should keep me here because I have a lot of anger to work out and I can't leave. If I leave, I might hurt someone.
Yeah. What now that's the thing though. If your dad could keep his shit together in front of tens of thousands of people, right? If there were things around him going on that were pissing him off to that point, it must have been really fucking serious.
It must have been really serious, especially because a little more than a year later, he was dead.
Right.
And you know what's really interesting is that a lot of people didn't know he went to Cirque Lodge. But I remember being told that there were 7 people who shipped him off face to face, and they made him go, and that included Linkin Park, which is really weird because nobody ever talked about that. The same way that band management likes to skip out on certain things. That was one of them.
Too, that he would go on that Genius interview with Mike, and Chester would start trying to actually talk about what the song meant to him, and Mike was like, "That's so esoteric, bro. Like, don't even listen to it." That's
like the Genius Heavy and Good Goodbye. We're really meant to believe that Mike and Chester don't write songs about real things, but that Good Goodbye was about basketball.
Girl.
Get out of here! And also, I think I saw a featurette recently where Chester, I think it was Sandra who sent it to me, or it was just posted about it, where he was talking about Heavy and why they had Kiara on it, and he was talking mad shit about himself. Like he was like, yeah, I just sound kind of self-centered singing a song like that, just me, so we wanted to like diversify it and give it a little bit more of like a dichotomy basically. And I'm paraphrasing, but this is what I took away from it. And that ended up being Kiara, which was really interesting because that didn't come out for a while, or that wasn't talked about in a certain way. And that was interesting to me.
Anything until recently, by the way, since then.
That was a very weird thing, and I actually had a couple things to say about Kiara that I haven't said yet because I don't have any bad feelings for Kiara at all. In fact, every interaction we've had has been extremely positive, and I don't want it to come off with all of this other stuff as me saying like you're the problem, because it can sound like that given all the harshness of what we're talking about. In reality, what we're talking about is scary as fuck. It's very real and violent and invasive, and any of it's true, which at this point is all hearsay because there's no, there are pieces of evidence out there. Like I said, I have my body of evidence, but there are elements of it that are still missing, and they're missing for a reason. And in my opinion, the things that are missing are just as loud as the things that aren't. And to go back to that timeline with Chester, in February, I said, I'm not feeling good. I don't want to be here anymore. He validated me. In April, he recorded Cross Off. It wasn't released until 2019. And everybody was saying Chester was at his happiest, most successful, most strong, most ambitious that he'd ever been. But here he was doing One More Light, literally the song One More Light, when he wanted to be doing Cross Off. Right. And then you know, that helps with the narrative, doesn't it? Well, Chester was singing about his feelings and being soft and emotional. You know, he didn't have any anger in his body at all. I mean, he was on Twitter telling his fans, well, I'm not 40. I'm 40 now. I can't scream about my angst like I did when I was a young 20-year-old. But in fact, he was still doing it with Mark Morton in
Right.
secret. And then by May, Sean Daldell released his book, and it revealed that he is taking advantage of Chester, and that Chester's timeline is out of whack, and it's almost like Chester was asking people to read between the lines. And then also in the same breath, he was revealing that he was part of the Freemasons, which I'm not saying all Freemasons are bad. I'm saying that it's
Good one.
interesting that this Freemason is
There's the
choosing to do certain
group
things.
within the group, right?
Yes.
The group within the
There's a
group.
group, and well, this is a big group, right? Freemasonry is a group. And then within that group, there's a hierarchy of different groups with different specializations, because that's really what Freemasonry is about. It's about specializing in the soul's journey and that cognitive growth. And so there are a lot of different kinds of Freemasons. And that's why I was being a little aggressive in calling him a master Freemason, is because I like to poke fun at him because he's annoying. And so then shortly after that, Chris Cornell dies by mysterious circumstances. And then shortly after that, the Manchester, or around that time, the Manchester arena in the UK is bombed at an during an Ariana Grande concert.
Yeah, I remember.
And that's a big thing. And then Chester turned around and said, you know what, no, all of this I need to change. While he was going for Hillary, at the same time, all of that stuff with the FBI and Hillary's going on, all that stuff with the DNC and Hillary is going on, all that stuff with John Podesta and Hillary's going on, Pizzagate's blowing up, and then
Yeah.
Chester dies.
Yeah. That's
And
fucking
that's just
crazy. There's
context. That has nothing to do with the actual like facts of the matter. And we're not listing off sources or anything. And so it's like, okay, that right there is enough to be fucking weird. And then what's even weirder is that I've said this too, in the Heavy Genius interview, Mike Shinoda literally points out that Chester started a habit within the group of producers and band members of talking about real life challenges before every songwriting session, with Chester sitting inches away from him. And then as soon as Chester dies, well, we didn't know it was that bad. Well, we didn't know this was going on. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And then you start to look at it and you're like, wait, you just changed your fucking story again.
Yeah.
What is that?
The robotic responses publicly from both Talinda and Vicky Cornell promoting the pharmaceutical industry.
I've got things to say about Vicky that I can't comment on right now.
Yeah.
But in time, I can.
Oh, okay. Good to know. See,
Same thing as before. I can't really talk about that, but I
I'm not as close as you are to this. I'm not like literally directly involved. I've just been researching this for years.
Well, there are also random death hoaxes. Like 2 days before Chester died, it's erased from the internet, like a lot of other things. There was a hoax that he died.
Yeah.
And in 2014, within a week of him joining the sex trafficking task force, or the human trafficking task force in Orange County, within a week, we were driving to San Diego Comic-Con, and there's a death hoax. He looks at it and he goes, oh, look, I died again.
They were threatening him.
Oh, yeah, but then you go back all the way to the beginning. My family was being stalked by the #1 U.S. military contractor, Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The daughter of the head of security there, Devon Townsend, was supposedly, and I know they're a plant, they were supposedly insane as a fanatic stalking Chester, but the fact of it is that they had nuclear level material clearance. They were on unsecured terminals for 8 hours a day.
I know.
In a public space. And these people have built everything from surveillance technologies, transportation technologies, to advanced science and outer space technologies, to music and all these things. It's MK Ultra, basically. I mean, you say what you want to say about it, but that's what it is. These people followed my father for over 3 years, and they harassed him, and they threatened us and the kids, and they did a lot of stuff. They even pretended to be other people, which is really interesting. And there's only one article on it, and guess what? It happens to be a not so coded, according to Mike Shinoda, instance of expression where, I don't know if I've said this before as well, the phrase minutes to midnight relates to the Armageddon or Revelations or the nuclear winter clock, which is a clock that society has where, as a whole, where they go, okay, so we're going to be this close to nuclear annihilation. Midnight is nuclear annihilation. which honestly is interesting because Mike would say there are no themes, but if you go listen to 1,000 Suns and you look at 8,000 Suns and what it is, it's very clear that that's nuclear holocaust. That's nuclear winter. They talk about the bombs going off. They talk about we're a broken people living under a loaded gun. We pay for the sins of our fathers, the sins of our sons. We pay for everyone. And that's
what I've done.
What I've done is really interesting because I find that actually lyrically that Minutes to Midnight is one of the most contradictory lyrical expressions that they have as a band. Because if you really listen to the lyrics, it seems like he's putting information together that doesn't belong. And
it was
it's
like
very
that Divide also. I know
again?
that song was made for the Transformers second movie, New Divide. But the lyrics on New Divide were also like that. They were contradictory.
They were contradictory, and I even spoke about this recently that there was a massive cover up of Chester's actual personality to make him into a family man, and this happened around the same time that they started putting in songs to like trying to build their brand. So they that's how they got Transformers. Like I was saying before to those who were watching at the time, you know. You can't have Chester Bennington going to the Kids' Choice Awards and acting as a nominee if he's known as the guy who will take any drug, go to any party, and is a fucking rock star for life.
Yep.
You can't do it. You can't take the kid from who's been you can't take the 14-year-old who's been in a crack house and put him on stage as a role model for children until you cover that shit up. And so, you know, to kind of go back to what I was saying about all of this is like Minutes to Midnight refers to the nuclear Armageddon. 1,000 Suns is describing in metaphor what the nuclear Armageddon is. And then it goes into Living Things, which is about how everything that they were was lost in translation because of that nuclear holocaust that they participated in, which is elaborated in an album called The Hunting Party, where they out themselves as being imitations of rebellion, playing a game that they were taught to play and leading people on in a way that they weren't supposed to be doing that. Because it's all war.
That's what the Hunting Party is about. See, I've always
Listen
been
to their songs.
about.
Listen to take the lyrics literally. You threw the keys to the kingdom down my eye. The hole in my eye. I am my own casualty. I fuck up everything I see. And then what did he say? Literally, I'll be that nail in your coffin. Thinking that I soften, I was ducking down to reload. The entire album, Living Things, is about sixing the people in the industry that they were having problems with. There was somebody who literally threatened them. He said, you came up with the right kind of threat to show me, to make me to let you know you can't intimidate me.
I respect that.
About? What the fuck are you talking about? And there are all these other things that are happening. And it's really interesting because when you start to look at the thematic overtones, you realize that when Chester's saying blackout and cross off, which is something I've also said publicly already, when he goes, I'm blacking out behind the line, he has a song called Blackout. You never say no. You take and you never say no. You push it back down. What's that? Blood in my eye. Go back to Gray Days. What's in the eye? Blood. Everything's connected. Chester has a very specific iconography he uses. He has a very specific thematic language that he uses. And when you go back to things like Minutes to Midnight, it's really interesting because it's actually the only article available that this interview took place, where at the end of one of the Minutes to Midnight music videos, we don't know which one. I think it might have even been Shadow of the Day, to be honest. I think they tell you in the article. It's been a while since I read it. But this interviewer's like, hey, this thing happened recently where you were hacked by somebody who guessed your password and they took over your entire life. Well, that turned out to be Devon Townsend, the daughter of the head of security, who worked at the same complex called Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this person was doing a lot, but it was only during the time of Minutes to Midnight where Chester was talking about it. So the only article, the only interview that exists that explains any of this, how the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and the DOD, the Department of Defense, and the DOE, the Department of Energy, actually were in a legal dispute with my family because of the fact that Chester was being stalked by someone who they have acknowledged as their #1 military contractor. They were using prioritized tech to do that. They had everything from graphs of proximity. They had literally everything, like lists of everything. They were literally taking in emails or information that they thought that they didn't want Chester to see, and they were scattering it. They were deleting it. They were holding it. They were only allowing him to see what they wanted him to see. They're saying, you act this way. You say this or else.
Well, literally that they had cyber attacks and someone looking into what was going on with their business because things have been going on previously.
Oh yeah, that was the whole point too, is that this person had been hired just previously to this interaction who had won a $3.5 million settlement with Sandia National against Sandia National Laboratories, because this guy, his name was Sean Carpenter, he was brought in as a systems analyst to track down a breach in the security of Sandia National Laboratories. What they found was that a Chinese hacking group called Titan Rain had infiltrated their system. But because the guy was a member of the U.S. military, he felt that it was his duty to share it with the U.S. military, despite the fact that it was a private company. Once he did that, and there were all these systems that were stimulated and all these processes that were set into motion because of this, he was brought into the Office of Counterintelligence at Sandia National Laboratories, was told by the head of that department, who was ex-CIA, that if Sean Carpenter had been one of his men in the field and he had done what he did, he would have beheaded him.
Oh my God.
He won $3.5 million or something around that amount. This happened right before this happened to Chester. And then this happened to Chester. And what's really interesting is that they arrested Devon Townsend. They took her to prison and they said, well, she needs to be here for her own mental health. And as far as I'm aware, and I have people who know how to look for things, help me look for these things, they could not find any documentation that said she got any kind of help. They couldn't find anything about what her actual time in prison looked like. They couldn't even find a record, really. They were like, she basically disappeared. And they tried to make her look like a fanatic. They were like, oh, she has stickers on her computer and she's wearing a Linkin Park jacket as they walk up to her in the complex to arrest her. That in her house, she's got Linkin Park stuff all over the walls, including this shrine above her child's crib. And she's this crazy person. But it's
That could have
like,
all been set up.
was it?
That could have all
That's what
been
I'm saying.
set up.
I'm saying it was.
That's like
I'm saying it is. I'm saying that there's no
dude.
doubt, especially considering a lot of the inconsistencies in the narrative that we're talking about surrounding Chester's life and my life also, because I was affected by these things.
You don't use government systems and all-day work hours to look up something and be found out.
Yeah, how is it that Devon Townsend ended up using an unsecured terminal and prioritized information or tech information systems or technology? How are they in an unsecured terminal in a public location, not being held accountable for their work, and they were spending on months on end, 8 hours a day doing this professionally, getting paid for it?
As the director's daughter, like you would have even bigger eyes.
I didn't even know this is how deep this went. I found that information about this lady.
Yeah.
It took a lot of digging, right? I had to go to fucking DuckDuckGo, search Chester Bennett murdered, and then I found like after like 3 pages this website called themetalden.com, and this guy named Randy Rocket Cody has been like reporting on this since it happened apparently, and he like knows people directly connected and a bunch of other things, but a bunch of the things he found out about, Jamie, align with what you're saying. I haven't tried to reach out to him because I don't want to. I get a little weird vibes from it, but that piece of information is on his website, along with a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, and all this stuff I knew before I even went public. That's why the second it happened, I went, nope, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but we're not doing that. And I was like, here's my insurance policy. I'm not suicidal.
Remember when the internet tried to jump down it all being a conspiracy theory back in, 2021, right? And
say that again? Sorry?
The whole internet tried to jump along it being a conspiracy theory back in, 2021?
I don't remember. I wasn't there for it. I was on my own. I was dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So anybody who would say anything about it not being suicide on the Chris Cornell and Chester thing, it would be shut down by these articles on Reuters saying that, it's all like, connected to a yournewswire.com article that came out in 2017 and it's been debunked. But apparently that this Metal Den guy had gotten the information first, which was true, and then yournewswire.com ran with it. And I remember reading a couple of those articles, not from yournewswire.com, about both your dad and Chris Cornell being investigated as murder by the police before it was officially ruled as suicide. So there's always been a really weird...
Well, the incident report was something, like I said, that I had just as my thoughts on his suicide, I was just like, okay, then it is what it is. I didn't look at it for a while because I didn't want to see the pictures. And then when I finally gained the courage, I was like, you know what? No, I'm ready. I could see him that way. I looked at the pictures, and then I was like, oh, there are no pictures. And then I started reading the incident report, and I was like, oh, this is really weird, actually. They only canvassed the room. They didn't canvass the rest of the house. They didn't talk to neighbors. The EMS are... They did. Well, apparently there was blood on the floor. I heard a couple of things about the dogs eating the chickens, or killing the chickens, which was something that the dogs I mean, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But there was like a whole thing about missing details in the incident report, which by the time I arrived on scene, there was no sign of that. So I was confused by that. But there were people who had been there earlier than me, and they'd said so. And
they said they cleaned it up right away.
Yeah, the report was weird because the EMS arrived before the supervising detective, and they were in the room moving stuff around and documenting things before the detective arrived.
That's
and
a
then
big.
they made note of that in the incident report. So then, they made sure to say that there was like half a pill in a bottle, which was, I believe they said Ambien, that there was a black notebook, which was an autobiography he'd been writing for his outpatient program. And that was about it. A pile of fingernails under his thumb. He had been peeling his fingernails, like anxiously or something like that. And then in the incident report, you'll see that it's like an hour or two, like there's a difference. And then finally the detective arrives, and their name is like Wild. And I'm not saying it can't be a real name, I'm just saying it sounds crazy. But as far as I'm aware, the first name was Vananda. And I think the way that you could describe the second name might be, I said Shalakians because I didn't know how else to fucking say it. It's like Cholianks, something like that. It was very odd. And I was like, that just sounds fake. That just sounds like a code. And then they showed up, and then within 2 hours, they decided that there was no foul play. There was no reason to get homicide involved. There was no reason to check anything else. And they only took us to the bedroom, and then they left. And that was the entire thing. And you can find that. This is all public access. You can go look for the incident report. And it's very weird.
Yeah.
And a lot of that kind of stuff was strange, too, because, and this might trigger some people, but I'm going to be forward about the actual things that I read because we're talking about it, and that is what this is for. There was this very odd thing where he died undressing for the night. So he had been like half undressed. He was like, taking some clothes off. He had like taken his shirt off, but he still had, I think it was a tank top and jeans or something like that. His pants were unbuttoned, but he had a belt in his pants. And then he had a belt around his neck. But the belt, which was super weird because it's like, why do you have two belts? Yeah. That's kind of weird. But the belt itself was strange because it was a corporate sponsor's belt called Hugo Boss. Hugo Boss, they're a clothing company. They're kind of like more expensive like suits and formal wear stuff. And what was really interesting about that is that, it's very weird that he had a belt in his pants, and it's very weird that he had also killed himself with a belt, but that specifically it was a corporate sponsor he had recently sold himself into a contract with. And what's interesting about that is that he did not even though there was alcohol on scene, he did not qualify for a blood alcohol limit. So he actually was sober when he died. He was taller than the door that he hanged himself from.
Same with Chris.
I know a lot about. I saw some stuff about Chris that is very, very, very challenging.
They weighed more. Chris weighed more than that exercise band could hold him. Even the strongest strength. Someone looked that up and broke that down too.
Somebody named Natalie Denise did a retrospective on this, and they're a journalistic, they're a journalist detective type deal.
Yeah.
And they did a breakdown of the actual incident report, and then they did a breakdown of the actual apparatus that supposedly killed Chris, but was called a suicide.
Yeah.
And or an unaliving. I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but they found that it's physically impossible for him to have set it up in the first place. Like it goes back into the room behind him. Like it's a very strange thing. So when you put all these things together, and then you put together that, there are no receipts, but there's a bag. So there's a bag that Chester brought home, and it had alcohol in it. It was a single Stella, and then it was a tall boy. He drank the Stella, and then he drank half of the tall boy. And basically, for those of you who don't know, it's like 2 beers in one or 3 beers in one. And but he still didn't qualify. He still didn't qualify for violating a blood alcohol limit, which means that he was still technically sober.
Technically, yeah.
And what's interesting about that is that he was only home for a couple of hours, and then he was supposed to be at Disney with his sister while he was, and thanks to Sean, this is now more confusing, supposed to at the same time be back in Arizona for a 3-day production rehearsal for the show they were going to put on in October, which just sounds weird to me. Sean, I talked about this before. Sean actually was someone who keeps dropping lore, like kind of like Mike does. Mike and Sean kind of drop lore every couple of years. They add a little bit more to the picture, but then they end up crossing their own stupid wires. And so, you know, Mike will say things like, well, we never knew. And then 5 seconds later, which is really a couple of years in real time, he'll be like, oh, no, yeah, he totally would come to the studio plastered, like he couldn't even talk to
What
him.
about
And it's
all
like,
that
that's
shit?
all that would happen all the time. And it's like, what are you talking about?
All
You
that
just said you guys weren't.
shit he talked about your dad on Howard Stern last year pissed me off.
I have brought up Howard
That
Stern
pissed
interview. I
me
brought up
off. I was like, this
interview. I brought up
motherfucker.
a lot.
Dude, and the way that he was dancing around his words and saying a lot and acting nervous, it's like, bro, you're showing that you were part of this.
I don't know. There's this really great little Sims line. She goes, how do you lie to me? In my face, in my face. I'm like, yeah. That's literally, because I ask myself myself that question all the time. I'm like, well, how did they lie? How did they do that to me?
Yeah.
How did I not know? And it was like, oh yeah, because they said other things.
It's funny that
that's
you
right.
say that, because on my side project, Falafel Dragon, I started it because I played music at a place, and I live in Daytona, Florida.
Okay.
And I started playing music at this place that Man vs. Food gave a good review.
Okay.
But I played music there about a year, then I find out that he's doing all that Epstein shit, the owner, right?
I don't know.
So I started this project to expose that.
Okay.
Actually, one of the person that beat the shit out of me a few days ago is a regular there. So he's part of that whole rabbit.
Oh, he's got the
right.
vibes. Interesting.
Right.
Huh.
So it's funny you say that, because on the second Falafel Dragon album, on a song called Lost in the Fact of the Matter, at the very end, if we make it true and we mean it and believe it to be true, the truth and lies behind the big doors of lies, they will burn. But at the part where I say believe it to be true, and I originally credited this, but I took it off out of respect, which I think you'll appreciate. I think I channeled your dad, so I credited his soul as a writer on that song.
Yeah, that's actually badass. I just talked to a guy, Justice, about his music, and I was like, you know, people channel that shit all the time. It's like, because he was like, I don't want to be like disrespectful or, you know, weird or anything. I'm like, I have this conversation with people so often.
Yeah, it was cool.
I channel that guy sometimes.
I was like, well, if any of his family sees this, they're probably going to think this is like not respectful, and I don't want to do that. But every time I listen to that part, I hear him in there. It's crazy. And that performance that me and Steven did at the DBAM Fest in 2017 in Brockton, Mass. I think we were both channeling both Chester and Chris. I think they were utilizing us as vessels to get their message.
I would love to see these performances, to be honest.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to see them.
It's a little rough. I had strep, so I didn't do your dad's song justice.
Oh no, but that's not what it is. You're not channeling him, or you're not being him. You're channeling him. That's different.
No.
And I appreciate that, you know, like a lot of people, I'm glad that this space exists, because there are a lot of people who have cool things to say like that who wouldn't otherwise be able to actually say it, because it's like, you can only say it to people who care, and I care. Like, that's really cool.
I know you do.
It happens all the time. Like, it happens all the time. And I even have to catch myself sometimes. Like, there were a couple times last year where I was live and I could literally feel him coming out of me. And I was just like, you need to chill, because you're going to scare everybody.
Yeah.
Like people aren't ready to see the realness of the medium nature of reality. Like, you're not, like, I'll be on screen and then I'll just be Chester, and like those who know him know, but then those who don't. And it's like the people who know are like, I feel like they resonate subconsciously. They're like, oh, I feel connected to this. And then the people who are fearful or whatever you want to call it are like, fuck that noise. And it's like,
were calling
that's what it is.
People were calling it in the chat the other night when I was watching. People were calling the fact that you were channeling him even the other night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were saying it in the chat when you didn't see it when you were. that lovely lady Bonnie. She was great.
Yeah, Bonnie was great. I loved having her on. Yeah,
I'm so sorry that those people were being that way in the comments. Me and a
it's
bunch of
okay.
other people.
It's all right. You know, it happens. That's why I was like, let them run. And then when I read it later, I was like, no, that actually took a turn. It was
Yeah,
fine, and then it took a turn.
what happened was they got butthurt because you said you were going to bring them on,
Yeah,
and then you didn't right
yeah,
away, and then they started trolling
yeah, yeah.
hard, and
And then, well,
it
I mean, Motown was literally trolling. He was
yeah.
like, I'm not here for any other reason. But I will say, shout out to Motown for being a troll and being absolutely ridiculous. And please don't ever do it again. But also, I didn't know that Eminem had released The Death of Slim Shady. I did not know that. So
Oh,
when
what'd you think of?
I had no idea, and then I was like, oh, what is he talking about? And I looked it up, and I was like, oh, I got to check this out. And I haven't checked it out yet. It's in my saved on my library, but I haven't seen it
Dude,
yet. And
he goes
I'm ready.
after Diddy on like the whole
I
thing. I think it's
was literally raised on Eminem. Like when
yeah.
my mom was using, she would play the "Somebody please help me, my dad's gone crazy." But I was talking about my mom because I didn't even know my dad at the time. And so like I'm sitting here and I'm like, no, this is full circle. This is like that's Jamie as a kid and now Jamie as an adult
Yeah.
in Eminem. Like I could see that shit so clearly. I got to take a second to like actually sit down and read a book. You know
We're
what I mean?
only
Like this is not.
you
This
and
is
I are only a year apart, so
Are
yeah,
you
being 6
older
years
or
old,
younger?
getting in my brother Brad's car and him putting on Without Me and then giving me
Yeah.
the censored CD for my birthday just to cover his own ass. That's
I
what
love that.
started it all for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to bring up one more thing, and then I also wanted to give the floor to someone else. I saw there were a couple of requests.
No worries.
Just we've been going for a bit, and then we're still going over to YouTube. So I just want to make sure that we hit that 2-person quota.
Yeah.
And but somebody said here, and I this was part of my recent discoveries in 22. So when I started researching myself and actually connecting with people and trying to find documents. Um, and I said also before I got on here, I was posting that I had said that Sloan Bella had done a reading on Chester a couple of days after I contacted them, and that it was interesting because the videos she had already posted about a year or two earlier. They were all very relevant to my actual everyday life. Well, when she was doing that, she's like, Chester's talking to me. I was laughing because I was like, I literally come to people's dreams as Chester. Like I have a lot of accounts where they're like, yeah, I think this and that. And it's so weird that I was talking to him because, it came around energy that you bring. And I'm like, well, the things that they said to you are things that I say to you every day when I talk to you. So like, I think that's interesting. I'm not saying it's not him, but I'm saying we ride the same wave. So,
Right.
and there things aren't one or another. They're virtual. So they manifest whatever energy is stronger at the moment, whatever is relative to that
You're
moment. And
also
so,
born
yeah,
child. You're also his born child.
no,
So
I
there's
know.
that.
And also I have a whole complex that I've had to unpack for myself because people didn't see me as Jamie. They saw me as Chester. They refused to see me as anything else. They would try, but ultimately they would just think of Chester when they saw me. They would only hold me to the standard that Chester was. They'd only be like, oh, you're Chester's son. And
anything remotely close to expressing how they did, and they're like, no, you can't do that because Chester did that. I was like,
yeah,
that's just how
Weird.
it's just weird. Like people just kind of get
Yeah.
strange about it. And so when I realized that I was being masked in people's dreams as my father, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So when I was watching that video, I was like, oh, that's funny. She said in the video, that specific video, she says someone in the family found something. They were finding documents. I was researching that entire time. Like, do the math. You guys go back. You have this entire timeline of what I've said to you and what I haven't, and you know why and why not. Go back and look at everything I said. Watch that video again, and then go tell me that she's talking just about Chester. Go tell me that that's what's going on, because that's not what's going on. She's not just channeling Chester. She's confused. She's saying things I'm saying. I'm here right now ministering to you. Isn't that interesting? And it's right next to his death day and all these other things. It's very interesting. And I've been on the metaphysical wave since I got back.
Yeah.
And I've been I crossed over to the other side, and trust me, you all know, you watched it. I've died many times.
Yeah.
Whether you knew it or not, it happened in public.
Yeah.
But somebody was saying right here,
And I jumped out of a car when I was 19. I broke my back. We were going 40. It was Christmas in Massachusetts. I shouldn't be here.
hey,
But somehow, through divine intervention, I'm here. So I
hey,
relate. I relate.
We're here for a
Yeah.
reason. We're having this conversation because it matters. Your experience in the
Yeah.
whole situation matters, because whether people want to say you have a place to talk about it or not, you do, and everyone else who had interactions with Chester does, and anyone who had interactions with the bands, they do have a right to say something. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can somebody, for example,
Here,
just on a
it's
basic
not
level,
even
how
bad.
could you even release do a re-release of Chester's solo work in Dead by Sunrise 7 years almost after he passed? How could you re-release an anniversary vinyl when he's not here? It's not
Yeah.
yours. That's literally an album he wrote for himself. You know
It's
what I
hard.
mean? It's very
Yeah.
interesting, and those things keep happening. Sorry,
What
you were saying something.
Samantha also told me a few years ago was that they were trying to replace Chester and keep Linkin Park going. I don't know if
Maybe.
there's any truth to that, but that'd be horrible if they try to do that. I say just let it die.
I would say let it die, but I'd also say I don't think Mike knows what that means.
No, he doesn't.
I don't
But
think
he
he
has
knows
his own
what
solo
stop.
career. I know greed is one thing, but he has his own solo career. He could just do his own thing.
And
It's
unfortunately, I kind of attacked it at the roots a couple of weeks ago because I think Post Traumatic is a sellout album, and I think that it's incredibly disrespectful. And
Mhm.
I will die on that hill. I don't
Did you
care.
see
You can't.
that awful movie that the lead single from that is in, Scream 6? It was bad. And it's also the two new Scream movies were written by a Freemason, James Vanderbilt. So there's connections there.
They're all. I love it. I love to hear it. Please, please keep spewing it. I have like. Okay, I'm trying to find the thing because this brings me back to the oddness of the situation. So,
So
people have
odd.
always asked me, why don't you go to the police,
You
Jamie?
can't,
If
you
it's that
can't
serious, why
because
don't you
they're
go to the police?
corrupt.
I don't know. Why did the LASO incite literal wars with people? Why would the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office be something that I feel comfortable talking to when they're the ones who decided that homicide was not in play, when they're the ones who put the cap on my father's uh, investigation,
Mm.
and they're the ones who also did things like cover up the Charlie Manson case
And the
and
Elizabeth
lie
Short
about it.
thing. What about that? Black Dahlia. Look at their logo. The LA County Sheriff's has a triangle within a triangle in their logo, which is a known pedo symbol.
There are a
They've
lot
been
of things
protecting
to
it for a
say
long time.
about the LASO. It's a long history. It goes into race, it goes into drugs, it goes into politics, it goes into everything.
Yep.
The fact that I am being told to go to the police is hilarious
Oh, it's
because
funny.
I've even started talking about my own interactions with the police recently because it's so stupid. These people are ridiculous. They only have agendas.
Your family.
Jamie, I've gone to the police about the Daytona tap room, the person that's doing all that stuff up here.
Yeah,
And you know what? They've done
yeah.
nothing. I've told the feds they've done
They probably
nothing. They
won't.
continue to allow him to get away with it.
I believe it. You were saying?
That there's just a lot of people in your family who have close ties to the LAPD.
Oh yeah.
And people in like cop positions. Period.
Well, also,
look at who has close ties to those organizations.
yeah, take a look at the ties that bind. That's what I got to say about that.
Yeah.
And there are two things I'll say about the police, and also about the articles that I found and didn't find. And then we'll call it on this conversation for today.
Can you ask them to find that article?
Yeah, can you send me like everything that you're talking about?
Yeah, I
Like
will.
all of it, like the performances, the articles, all of it. Like
Yeah.
I
Just
genuinely, I've done my research,
please,
but I can only go so far. And
please remind me specifically which things you want me to send to you.
I
So
will.
I
We'll have a conversation about it. But
Thank you.
so I went back and researched myself, and when I did this, I met Trish and I met a person named Jen, and they helped me find some stuff. And then they also helped me realize how weird some of the finding can be, the scavenging hunt, so to speak, how strange it can be. Because what happened was, one, I met with my grandfather, who is Chester's father. His name is Lee Bennington. He had 30 years on his belt. He does currently. He's still alive. He is a 30-year Phoenix Metropolitan Police officer.
Special
He was a sergeant. Say that again.
special crimes, right?
That was part of what he did. So he came from Ohio, and he joined the police, and he stayed there for about 30 years. He climbed his way up the ranks. When I asked him in 2022, what do you do? I said, tell me about yourself. I don't know a lot about you. We never talked about you ever. So please tell me. Even though we spent a lot of time together when I was young, we never talked about you. So please tell me. And he said, I came from Ohio from a bad situation. I joined the police. I climbed the ranks. And then I actually, I was a legend in my time, is what he said. Just like your dad, I was a legend in my time. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then he said, I was a part of special crimes a special unit. It was a child uh, crimes unit. So it was everything that you can imagine related to children, stuff that I can't say out loud, but we all know happens. And part of it was, well, I guess I could say it out loud. He was looking into sex crimes. He was looking into trafficking crimes. He was looking into, CP and things like that. And I asked him, I said, he made this comment about how all of the pedophile or the PDF files, sorry, um, off themselves or unalive themselves because they're guilty. And I said, well, that's interesting, because that's actually a really serious allegation. I'm just wondering, like, how many of these people were actually found to be what they are with like concrete evidence, and that was it. That's the end of the story. Because it's a big thing. Like if you say that about anybody, they go to prison. It's done. Like that is the end of their life. That is the end of their humanity. They will lose it because that is we all know the horror stories of what happens to child predators in prison.
Yes.
Okay. And I said, how many of them? And he said, they're all guilty. They all do it. And I said, yeah, but you do realize like the impact of your actions on someone's life, correct? And he was like, no, they did it. They just did it. And I was like, so you're not going to answer the question, but you're going to tell me that you saved all these lives. When in reality, I'm asking you, how many lives did you justly save? And you said, it doesn't matter because that's what it is.
Mm.
And you're telling me that almost every single person you interacted with had some kind of life or death interaction after you claimed them as what they were. And you're not going to clarify on that. And then he went on to say, he was super stoked about it too. It was kind of weird. I got this like sociopath look in his eyes because he literally just like zoned out and was like, yeah, I fucking got those guys. And I was like, well, it sounds like you kind of might have got some people who didn't deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, and just because they unalive does not mean that they did it.
Yeah.
That they are far more aware of the way in which your actions outweigh their own and how it hurt them in a very significant way. And that is dehumanizing. That's basically putting someone in a torture chamber and saying, well, you fucking just get over it. And then I was like, okay. And then he's like, yeah, but I was a surgeon. Sergeant. I didn't like being in my office. I would be on the field all the time. You don't know what you see in the streets. You don't know. I was there. And I was like, well, that's true. And I guess this kind of brings me to three things because this is a part of the conversation as well. I'll get to that. But he said, I was out there with the guys. He's like, I was the guy who, say an officer did something they weren't supposed to. I would get there and I would fix it all up so that they wouldn't get caught and I wouldn't tell their superiors.
Oh.
And I was like, really? You were a fixer? That's so strange. And what was interesting is that when I initially talked to Lee about it, I told him I didn't trust him. I said, I don't trust you. I said, he disowned me in my first year of college in a super aggressive, stupid way. And I was like, okay, I don't care about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue on with my life. And so for years, he was trying to do certain things. At the funeral, I had to kick him out. He was trying to let my father's abuser, who was his older brother, Brian Bennington. And that's what I heard. That's what Toby told me. That's what Susan told me. That's what a lot of people have told me. The person who, and I'm going to say this out loud right now because this is the person I'm trying to eventually get the DNA test from, because he could also be my parent, ironically enough. There's a lot to say about the DNA confusion around my existence. He tried to, what he did was nobody gave him information about the funeral because he was a pain in the ass and I had already been disowned, and I was like, no, you're not doing this to the family. And then he showed up and he agreed to be on his best behavior, and then he fished information from me, and then he went to Toby and he said out loud that he was bringing Brian to the funeral, and she started sobbing and she freaked out because he was their abuser, both of them, Esther and Toby.
That's
and
so I didn't know any.
People don't talk about this. This is what I have to deal with. My uncle, okay? He's also a career Phoenix Metropolitan cop. So yeah, it's like a serious thing. I've been in. He's the guy who flies the helicopters around Phoenix. He's one of the
I
guys
have,
who flies the helicopters
I
around
have a
Phoenix.
question for you. I've read some. I don't know if this is true at all. I've read this somewhere. It might add credence to our theories we've been working on here. That Chester's mom had worked for Podesta's campaign at some
No
point.
idea.
Yeah,
I know
I
she's in the
wasn't sure.
medical field. She ran a hospital for a while, but I don't
Yeah,
know anything
that
about it.
might just not be true. That just might be
I think
information
people really
that's
like the idea that Podesta looks like Chester, and I don't
does look
disagree.
like.
I don't disagree, but I also think that we need to realize the very real roots of the Pizzagate Podesta issue and how it was intrinsically tied in through the context of time to his death.
Yeah,
And yeah,
back to even it all connects to everything. It connects back to the Franklin cover up. It connects back to the Elizabeth Short
there's
murder.
a
It
lot.
connects to all
There's even
connected.
stuff to say about like Bob Saget dying in Florida. Like, there's a lot to say.
My
Uh,
buddy is with Jamie Kennedy, from Scream, Malibu's Most Wanted. And he's out there exposing the industry too. You don't see him in movies anymore because he's using his podcast. This is why I started the podcast, because of him. And he was talking about Bob. He's like, Bob was my friend, and the way he died in that hotel is fucking weird. And why is nobody questioning it?
well, and there's a lot of things to question about Bob that nobody's
I know.
questioning. The way he
Well,
talks and the way he interacts, the way he talks about the
that
Olsen twins, the way he
guy,
talks about life, it's fucking weird.
Randy Rocket Cody Metal Den website I found had a whole thing about him being part of the League of Jesters or something like
Yeah,
that. And there's
interesting. Well,
certain it's
we should talk about that definitely. I want to know, and
yeah
I have a lot of ideas because I've seen things happen in real time.
yeah
I've caught on to things and then went, wait, that's happening, and then boop, right in the real world it happened. I'm like, okay, so
yeah.
I'm ahead of the curve. I'm literally
When
I place myself in a position to be aware of the
it's
things
like
as they happen.
yeah, it's weird, man.
Well,
That's cool though.
I had asked Lee about this. How do I say it? I had asked him about the PDF files he was um, incriminating, and then he told me about being a fixer, and then
Right.
I was like, why is it that you lived down the street from me this entire time and my entire childhood, and you never came to see me? How is it that you two are on the Phoenix police force and we live down the street from each other and I didn't meet you until after I met Chester when I was 7? Like,
Hmm.
that's weird because you knew about me. And
He doesn't consider you his grandson.
he did. He says he does.
That's
But
yeah.
but it's like, okay, well then prove it. Oh, I have a real question. Where were you for 7 years?
The fuck.
You know, when CPS came to talk to me twice throughout my childhood, before my mom gave me up, were you there? You know what I mean? Like,
Could have been.
were you the supervising officer? And you should hear some of the stories about him interacting with Susan. But yeah, I found out that through some avenues that Brian was actually Chester's older brother, who's also a cop, was his abuser and Toby's abuser. And I had to kick Lee out of the funeral because of that. And I
And
was
Lee
like,
knew he was a fixer. So you think he wouldn't be covering up for his own
oh,
son?
well, when I called Lee the first time and I told him that I did not trust him, I said, I said, are you a I said, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer honestly. And he said, okay, what is it? And I said, are you a handler or not?
Ooh.
And he said, I, a what? I don't know what that is. And I said,
Ah.
Lee, I said this to his face. I said, Lee, don't gaslight me. You're playing stupid. You were in the police for 30 years. And this is before I knew about the special cases. This is before I knew about the PDF files being unalived. This is before I found out about, this is before the conversation where we sat down and he told me about being a fixer. And I said, don't lie to me. I said, you have 30 years career as a police officer. So how do you not know what handling means? And he was like, oh, what are you saying? I was like, I am asking you if you're a handler. I'll ask you again. He said, no. I said, motherfucker's lying to me. There's no way. There's no way.
That's Yeah.
And then I asked him. I called him when I found out about the potential of Brian being my father, which is something I covered last year. I was like, "Hey, is there any way that Brian could have been my father because of all these other allegations?" And he was like, "That's insane that you would even bring that up. I can't." He did the normal gaslight thing. He just went off. And then he ran around to everybody that we knew and told them that I was coming for them with like weapons and like to look out for me. And like he made this whole thing like I threatened them. I was like, no, I'm literally talking about Brian. And then I called Brian.
I'm just asking questions. Like I'm calling you to ask you.
I called him to talk to him. Was that?
Did you get any answers when you called him?
Oh yeah, I called him, and I said, yeah, I got the number from a cousin, who I only found out about after Chester died, because I found out that Lee had a whole family he never talked about. He has a brother with I have tons of cousins and uncles and aunts and all that shit in Utah I don't even know about. I met only one of them. And
Holy shit.
he reached out to me. I didn't even know he was real. I thought he was lying to me. I said, I don't believe you. And they started sending me photos of my family. I was like, oh shit, that's Lee? And that's his brother? I had no idea. Lee never brought him up ever. They had some kind of feud that I didn't know about. So my life is, as Kendrick Lamar said, twisted. The plot of my life is twisted from directions I can't see. And that's a fact. This is just something, that keeps happening. I keep finding these things out. And I called Brian and I said, look, I got some things to say real quick, and I'm going to need you to hold space for me, and I'm here to talk to you about this. And I don't remember if I talked about it publicly yet, because I wanted to get the DNA test first and do the whole thing at once. But it's a good time to talk about it because he started using police jargon on me. When police officers are trying to talk to you and walk you into a circle, and they're like thinking they got the edge on you and confuse you a little bit because they want you to be on a certain level and not another one.
Like hour of the conversation.
It's very mindfucky.
Yeah.
And I caught him a couple times, and I said, no. I said, you're trying to wrangle me like a animal. I'm telling you right now, you can knock that fucking shit off. I said, I see it. I said, I've been training for this moment, which is what a lot of people in my life don't realize. I literally trained myself psychically for this event. Okay. I already knew all this when I came in. I knew I was going to be hacked. I knew I would have to give the conversation. I gave it. Here I am again, talking about it again. I created a I created bulletproof armor. I'm out here naked.
You're the only one with pure intentions doing it.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Deal.
That's the bulletproof. The bulletproof is that I'm not lying, and I'm being authentic, and I'm being genuine, and I also respond actively to criticism, which is a nightmare for people because I can be wrong.
Everybody.
And say that again.
We're human. Everybody can be wrong.
Yeah,
we're not
some
perfect.
people can't. Have you heard Mike ever say he's wrong? Have you ever heard Sean Dowdell say he's wrong?
I've caught him in lies.
You caught him, but has he admitted it? So, I asked Brian, and he tried to lead me around a couple times, and he gave me this story, man. He was why I said, tell me what you know. And he gave me this, and I'll just say, he gave me this long story, and then at the very end, he said, he was banned from my house. Brian was banned from my house for accosting my parents for alluding and implying certain things. And I had found that he had made a shrine of sorts dedicated to the people he was accosting. And I was like asking him about that story, and he told me. And then I remember the last time I saw him. The last time I saw him was in about 2013, 2014. He never contacted me after Chester died. He never tried to reach out, nothing. So this whole time I was like, talking to him, I'm like, well, where were you then? Like, why weren't you here? Why weren't you trying to find solutions? Why weren't you trying to help? Why weren't you trying to be there for me? I used to spend time with Brian. And then when I found out why he was kicked out of our house, I realized, why the fuck was I allowed to be around Brian? When I found out what his relationship was to Chester and Toby, I was like, why the fuck was I allowed around Brian?
Yeah.
And so, I was very confused. And when he told me the story, he got the details wrong. He told me the entire thing. It was totally correct. And then he got one thing wrong. Believe it or fucking not, it was a trampoline. I have had trampolines Chester had trampolines at his house. And he told me that it was the last time he spoke to them, my parents, that he was at the house in Arizona before Chester moved back to California. And at the Arizona house, they had a trampoline that was in ground. It was lined by bricks, so it was like level with the ground. At the house they moved to after that, they had an above ground trampoline. He told me that this all happened at the house with the in ground trampoline, and he was dying on the hill that what he was saying was 100% the truth, and that he would never lie. But what was crazy was that I said, you know, you almost got me. I said, Brian, you almost got me, but you were wrong about something. I said, the last house I saw you at had an above ground trampoline, and that means that had to happen at a certain time under certain circumstances, and you're lying to me right now. He's like, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. I'm like, no, it did. I'll tell you why, because the last time I saw you was a 4th of July party in California, and the house you're talking about is in Arizona. So if you can rectify that, go ahead. And he couldn't, and he just kept gaslighting me about it. And I was like, I already told you this whole like running me around and roping me like a cow, like trying to lasso me and trying to drive me around. You can't do it. You are fundamentally misunderstanding what I am and what I'm doing here. And he even a couple of times tried to big talk me, you know, like he would be talking to me. And then he was like, oh, you know, now you owe me this. And I'm like, I don't owe you shit. I said, I'm calling you right now to talk to you, and then you're going to give me the answers I want. That's what we're here for. So, no, you don't get to turn around all of a sudden. Well, I gave you this much, so now you owe. No, shut your mouth.
Yeah,
Do not talk to me that way. And this, he even tried to act like he didn't know my mom's name. It was weird. And then, meaning Elka. And then he, just like Lee, when I asked Lee, because also, you know what happened? Oh, sorry, this is a part of the DNA conversation I didn't get to express. I had found out that from Susan that Lee was on the list of potential fathers that my mom wrote up when she got a DNA test. So not only was Brian on the list, but Chester was on the list, and so was Lee. And Elka would not confirm or deny that she had a list. And when I called all 3 of them, they all tried to fucking shut me down and gaslight me. I was like, hey, Lee, did you ever have sex with my mom? And he was like, who the fuck do you think you are? And that's when he shut it down and he went off on me. And that's when he decided to go run off and tell everybody I was threatening and coming around and going to harass and blah, blah, blah.
So
And
none of them admitted to having sex without them.
No.
None of them.
Chester did, but he's not here. So, and then there's people like Samantha who are undermining his decision to tell me that he did take the DNA test, that they were conclusive. There were 3 taken, and I am, in fact, his son. She said there were 0 conclusive tests. So, and that was last year.
Or Lee?
Samantha.
No, I'm saying who is she referencing?
She's saying that Chester lied about telling me about the when he told me about the DNA tests, that there were no conclusive tests at all.
But they take 99.9.
What the fuck are you supposed to believe?
I know, right?
Telling the truth?
So this is not new. This is my entire life. This is not just now. This is literally how I grew up. I have 4 or 5 stories from everybody. Nobody agrees on fucking anything.
Yeah.
And I told. So nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody. And so when I asked,
I'm the youngest of my family, and they do that to me too.
That's awful.
It's
Lee
awful.
did that. Lee did it, and then he said, you know, that's not fucking true. Brian did not do this to his brother. He did not do this to Toby. But Toby will literally tell me that, and I'm sure everybody's going to be pissed after this. Oh, I told you things, and then you go tell people. You already know what I do. You know what I am. And if you didn't want to say anything, then maybe you should have stayed out of it. But also, when I ask you questions, you literally have to be honest, or it's going to come and bite you in the ass.
If she doesn't want that reaction, don't post about it publicly. Because even I've commented on Toby's posts about the whole thing. Like I
blame everybody else for the problem. It's so weird, and why not respond to it?
Also, you're talking about people who like continuously tell you they see how much is going on and they're so sorry and they really want to help you and tell you things, and then they'll cut you off or be like, no, you're crazy, I didn't say that. And it's like, we had a whole 3-hour conversation where you just told me all these things were true, and then now you're telling me none of it's true and that I'm in trouble.
Literally.
That's insane.
That's what I was talking about the other day when I was saying that I had that memory moment with my mom, and I was going through my memories with her, and I found out about this guy who thought he was my dad and all these other things. And then she never wanted to touch it again. This is what I'm talking about. What they just said is what I'm talking about for everyone who's...
Let me guess. Your dad didn't pull this shit with you, did he?
My dad told me, 100% that I was his kid, but my dad also pulled other shit. My dad did a lot of other stuff. He did a lot of other stuff. And that's the thing is like, you literally can't tell who's telling the truth. You literally can't, you have to do this all for yourself. And so when I asked Lee about it, he said, no, that's fucking insane. When I asked Elka about it, she said, he's your grandfather. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, and what? I've literally found out that there's incest and mental illness that runs through my entire family on both sides. Okay? On both sides. So no, it's actually not that weird for me to say, is my grandfather my dad? Because guess what? When you put pictures of me and Chester together, we look the same.
Yeah.
But also, if you take a picture of Lee and you put Brian and you put Toby and you put fucking, well, I guess Toby doesn't count, sorry. Toby is Susan's daughter. She was adopted. So there's, if you put Brian and Chester together, they don't look the same.
No.
So it's like, I could definitely be the third brother. This could be a Sherlock Holmes situation. I could be the missing brother. But I could also be the son. My dad could be my uncle, or my brother, or it's very weird.
Dude, you have definitely an 80% facial match,
I know.
Chester. It's only possible with paternal.
That's what I'm saying. I believe that. But it's also like...
You sound like him too, so there's no way you're not his kid.
I agree. I mean, even then, I choose it, and he chose me, so back off.
Right.
And the thing is like, but I'm still asking real questions about the situation, so it's like, you know, it's interesting that everybody responded that way. And then after that, I had to kick Lee out of the funeral because of that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how serious it was at the time, but I had to kick Lee out of the funeral because I was like, you're not coming if you're going to do that. If you're going to go ahead and sell out information, you're going to bring the abusers to the place, and this person is so sure that they did it, meaning Toby, that they're hysterical and they're crying, like they can't go to the funeral anymore, then get the fuck out of here. And then he did.
Yeah,
and
seriously.
then we finally got back to it, and here it is, all this stuff with Lee. And it's like, it's insane. So to go fully back to it, you know, I wanted to bring up the thing about Lee because that brings up the paternity, that brings up the fixing, that brings up the I'm a legend in my own time, that brings up the political connections, that brings up so much because you know for a fact if he's running, by the way, guys, he ran a national program for lost children who he would recover. They would be given teddy bears. If you go look it up, you can find articles about it. Survivors of these interactions were given teddy bears. Yeah. He had a national thing going on, which means he had to be in it with the politicians. Period. The same way Chester had to be in it with the District Attorney of Orange County when he did the sex trafficking task force in 2014. It's just logic. And so when you go and you look at it and it's like, whoa, this is all fucked up. Then you go to the fact that somebody here was asking about the, or they were talking about the incident report and how there are certain things you can't access. Well, with Trish and Jen, I asked them to look around and they know how to look around. And Jen actually asked the PV, the Palos Verde Police Department, for the thumb drive with all the photos on it that they have, quote, locked away in their evidence locker. And they sent it an inventory back. It took a long time to get it back, but when they finally got it back, it was redacted. And it was saying that it was there, but that it had been taken out and not replaced. So the thumb drive itself of the actual crime scene investigation is missing, but it's reported to be housed with the Palo Verde Police Department.
That's the only way to make evidence disappear, to make it look like it's been logged in this day and age. That's
the only way to make things disappear is to get the authorities to take it into their own possession, develop a narrative. And you know what's really interesting is that TMZ knew that Chester had died, and they were waiting at the coroner's office for the report so they could put it all online. And then they managed to start doing it, and then they got shut down.
Yeah.
Nobody, as far as I'm aware, saw the body.
And
as far as I'm aware, nobody saw that.
Everything you're saying, I'll add credence to it. I mean, look at what happened to me. It took 20 years to remember it because I was MK Ultra.
Yep.
My dad was just a union rep for the UTU, but he had to get money from politicians. So that means going to conventions run by Schmil Schlinton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't join his little club because he loves his kids and doesn't want to hurt his kids. And look what happened. They punished his only son. My dad's 75. I'm his last kid.
Yeah, that's also called witchcraft.
I know shit.
Yeah, that's actually a very intense magical ritual.
I know
by taking bloodline of a person and torturing them and impressing upon them energies that are embedded deep into their psyche so that it forever affects the trajectory of your bloodline is magic.
Yeah.
And I said no. So stop treating me like that.
And
I know you're watching.
my bloodline specifically, my name is Motte, Motte. Originally, it's Sir Lamont from France. My great-great-grandfather actually painted a monastery that's in Roxbury, Massachusetts, that's still up. He was a fresco painter.
Whoa.
And he got to pick his name at Ellis Island. Not everybody got to do that.
Wow.
So art, and that, like I said, that monastery's still up. So that famous art runs in my blood. You know what I mean? Not to put myself on a high heel.
True. You have to acknowledge what you
my grandfather, my dad, my uncle Ned, all railroad people. So, and my dad plays blues music, so that's just something he does as a pastime, not like releasing albums he's going to, but you know, he's older. My point is, this runs in my bloodline, so of course they probably knew what they were doing, you know, when it happened.
I mean, imagine how long it's taken me to even get to the point of being able to actually be permitted to write lyrics that matter.
Yeah.
I can't even, I couldn't even release an album right now.
Yeah, why though?
Because I can't touch certain things.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed. So it's like,
that's why I've also been very careful about what I've been asking you, because I've picked up on that just by watching you.
Yeah, and you all know the answer if you go back and look. I'm not hiding anything. This is not being like, oh, I'm not going to talk about it because I'm being clandestine. No, I can't talk about it, period.
Can I share something with you?
Mm-hmm.
So this was, I want to say August of 2017. I was living in a rooming house in Marlborough, Massachusetts. And I want to say it was like early August, a couple weeks after your dad passed. And I was just on the front step crying, nonstop. I couldn't stop fucking crying, because even after your dad died, I started listening to Chris Cornell again. After Chris died, I couldn't stop listening to him for a few months, and then I stepped away from it. Mm-hmm. So like when this happened, I was listening to all this music and crying a lot because of it. And this lady who everybody in the town called crazy, because they said, oh, well, she calls herself a psychic, so she's nuts. You know, she comes up to me and she looks at me. She doesn't ask me why I'm crying, nor does she know. She just looks at me in the eyes and she says, Joe, Chester and Chris were killed. And if you're going to make music in the industry, you have to be careful.
Yeah, I believe it. 100%.
It was so weird because I didn't tell her why I was crying. She knew.
Yeah, that's called intuition.
Yeah.
Which is something that they hamstring in all of us, and specifically use Chester to do. That's what they used him to do. They used him to embed programmings and conditionings that are beneficial to the system, and then because they already knew that all of you were attached to them from early adolescence.
Look at that.
You guys had all
the lyrics
connections.
For breaking the habit specifically keeps you in that loop, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'll never be all right,
but
I'm breaking habits tonight.
Yeah, I break all the habits and I keep breaking them, and it's frustrating to see so many. It's frustrating, I'm sure, for people to see me walk through walls they thought were very real, and I'm just like, boop, no, boop, no, boop. I'm just gonna keep walking then, and it's like, no, stop, you stop. Like when Ryan the other day was like, you're threatening me and my family. I'm not threatening anybody. I didn't do anything. I literally talked to you one-on-one, and you chose to literally leave me on red and then gaslight me when I went public about how I think you're a sellout, because I do. The same way I think that Mike Shinoda and Sean Dell are sellouts, I think that Ryan Shuck has obviously sold out. It's my opinion. You can't tell me I'm being away when I'm not. It's not going to happen. In the past, that would have been something to do. But like I said, if magic is consciousness, then I'm conscious as fuck, and that doesn't work on me anymore.
Yeah. I think you and I have both been through so much that we have that energetic barrier up that doesn't allow those negative energies to take us with them.
I don't even see it. People be talking shit, and I'm like, where? I don't see what you're seeing.
Yeah, we were the ones giving the people talking shit in the comments the other day when you were just going on your tangent about your meditative spiritual journey, and I'm like trying to listen to you, and I'm like,
ah! No, I love that. But I love that too, that there's a space for everybody to have that energy. You were saying something. Are you waiting? You've been like, looking like you're trying to say.
No.
No. They decided not to.
Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, I appreciate you spending so much time. Like I was saying with Bonnie, like however the conversation runs, that's how I want to run it. I see that actually the next one that I was going to choose, they're not even there anymore. So I'm sure.
Oh,
I'm sure
I'm sorry.
disheartened, but that's okay. This is the same. This is as good as the conversation with Bonnie.
Can I tell the people about what we were talking about earlier before the stream?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah.
About
Yeah. I don't care. Yeah. I was like, wait, what were you talking about? I didn't even take it as that. So like so seriously, I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to. So yeah, for sure. Of course you can.
So soon I'm gonna be having Jamie on my podcast, the Dreaming Insomniacs, the podcast.
Yeah. And
So,
they just asked me today.
yeah,
That
we
wasn't.
just asked today.
This wasn't planned like that. I didn't even know if they would be
No.
interested. So this is totally impromptu. Oh, wait. I think it cut out. Did you say
Did it?
something? Maybe.
Oh no, I said it worked out.
Oh
That's
yeah,
all.
no, yeah, I did. Maybe I was. They overlapped a little late.
Okay.
I heard some sibilance in there. I was like,
Because you'll be able to look at their resources and you guys talk more.
yeah, we should do that for the podcast. Pull up the articles.
Yes,
We'll talk about
I'll
them.
bring them up on the screen and
It could
everything.
be an
Yeah, we'll go in.
extension of this.
This is gonna. Yeah, we can really do a whole deep dive. If I'm okay with it. I don't have any corporate strings pulling me.
Either. I don't sign contracts.
Yeah. Fuck that.
That's the other reason that people I'm able to get away with more than maybe the average person is because I didn't sign contracts.
Sell out. Yeah.
It's a two-sided coin. On one side, everybody that ever engaged with me never thought I was even capable of anything that I'm capable of. They never took me that seriously, so they didn't ask me to sign. I've worked on projects for 9 months pro bono, never had his contract, never been paid for anything, and then been cut out of it.
That's irritating. It's funny you say contracts too, because the thing about me mentioning our phone calls, me and Samantha's phone calls to my ex-girlfriend, is what really pissed her off, and she mentioned the words word contract.
Oh,
and I'm like,
please.
I didn't share anything.
This is
like,
crazy. I love that.
Bad or personal. But she was thinking that she was like, well, don't talk about this thing because it's scary. Sending me videos of like Jay-Z and all those people being in the Illuminati. I already know that. I know better. Did you read the questions I scheduled for your interview? Like, I wasn't gonna go there at all.
No, she most likely didn't. That's my experience with Sam, and that's not a diss. It's just my experience.
No,
I'm wrong. Maybe
I would love to have her on.
Weird waves. Maybe they were just odd interactions because that's the way they ended up. But
yeah,
that is my history with Samantha. And well, yeah, with everybody.
Hey, listen though, if somebody's a little flaky, they're not the worst person on the planet, right?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm flaky as fuck.
Me too.
Sometimes I'll say things and then I'll dip and I'll be like, but like I said, way back when I came out publicly and started redefining my space, I was like, I will drop the mic and walk away if I think this is not like, even right now, if something came up and I was like, oh, this is so serious, I can't talk about it, or I don't care about this or whatever, which it didn't obviously, but if it did for some reason, I'd just be like, okay, I'm leaving now. And that'd be it. There'd be no like, oh, I'm just sticking around to make things worse, or, feeling bad about it. I'd be like, okay, then it just isn't the time, or that isn't the situation. And I'm just that kind of person, or I try to be. And so, it's been really cool to have this conversation with you. I can't wait to continue that. I'm going to give the stage to like one person. I'm going to give like 2 minutes. If anybody wants to do it, you can. But I'm also going to say that it's 9 o'clock now. I'm going to be done at 9:30, and that's flat. So we had a really long conversation. It was awesome. Yeah. And that's not the time is not an acknowledgement of anything other than how awesome it was. But I do want to make sure we hit the 2-person quota, because I want to make sure.
When you post this, I'll share it to the story and share it around it.
I'm
gonna be geeking out about this. Trust me.
Good. I'm glad that we could have the conversation. I'm glad that we finally got to meet face to face. That's really cool.
Too, man. You're very down to earth, very real, and I really respect that, because people like us are few and far between nowadays, it seems. Aside from in the chat here.
No, and that's kind of the thing, is like, I'm concentrating people like that, because it's like,
I love it.
Yes, there are people who take it too far, and yes, there are people who aren't doing nice things, but in reality, they're mostly like this.
Yeah.
Like you. In reality, the 8 people, 9 people I've had on, they are all the same. They're all
I'm here for
cool.
I'm not going anywhere. I back you. I support you. There's a lot of people like I'm in audio engineering school, and there's students that don't want to believe the truth about the situation because it's too fucked up for them to handle because they have teenage kids of their own.
Trust
You know?
me, man, I don't have a lot of friends because I exist so far in space that a lot of people can't even hang. They're just
Yeah.
like, I just don't
And
understand the zero gravity. It's freaking me the fuck out. I'm like, well, yeah. Well, how do you even stomach most of this? It's like, because it's real. That's just
yeah,
that's the only way you can do it is you go, oh no, you don't go, oh no, that can't happen. You go, it did.
yeah, you gotta have if you want to be able to learn about this stuff, you're just getting into it. You have to be able to let your pre-existing judgments towards things go and let go of the programming that media has put on your brain.
Recondition
Because,
yourself.
yeah, you have to deprogram yourself.
Yeah.
Funny that I said that because how I started finding out about the owner of the Daytona Tap Room in Daytona was I played a song from the Dreaming Insomniacs 2020 trilogy called Deprogrammed.
Yeah.
And the chorus is, it's now time
Yes,
to
you
deprogram
did.
and take out the negative thought.
Yeah.
No need for alibis in which time has forgot. The criminals, they were in bloom, but now they are so lost. And he comes up to me after I played it and shook his head no. And I just said, what the fuck is
Yeah.
his problem? To one of
He
my
was,
friends. That's the owner. Don't worry about it. Like he's not a problem. Like, what the fuck?
I,
He revealed himself to me.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Amazing. Thank
fucked
you for
up.
sharing that. That's
Yeah.
actually an incredible image. I
Yeah.
can just see him like,
Yep.
that's just how it feels. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Exactly what happened. I was like, well, that's how you reveal yourself if you're part of it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, when a guy literally comes up to you and tells you, I'm not part of that group, you're like, oh.
I'm part of the other one.
You're like,
Yeah,
then must be. You must be the other party.
the other party. Jesus Christ.
Well, thank you for
But yeah, seriously,
being here. I appreciate this.
thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure, and I'm so excited to have you on the
I'm
podcast.
excited too.
We will bring
Yeah.
justice. We will bring justice,
At the
Jose.
very least, it will be awareness.
Yeah,
And that's all that
that will.
really can be done at the base level. And if justice comes out of it, I would love it. But if it doesn't, which sometimes it doesn't, then at least we talked about it.
Well, you've helped given me closure for 7 years of pain, and I never even met your dad. And I've been crying about him weekly for 7 years.
Damn.
It's
I'm
affected
going to
me.
stomach that one for a while.
But that's how much of a profound effect his music and then the way that things were done to him affected me. Fucking fucked up, you know. His music's my childhood. As much as I love Green Day, and I've seen Green Day 5 times, and I'm seeing it again in August, Linkin Park was also there that entire time. Through all that fucked up shit I was going through, Linkin Park was there, you know. So for me, it's like
I hear you.
this is an important thing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I totally, I'm honored to be able to share the space with you. And I look forward to continuing to share space with you.
Likewise.
If anybody wants to come on, go ahead and send that request. And 10% of my battery because I was standing the phone up. When we
Do you
get
want me to do it now?
yeah, I think you have to do it on your side.
All right.
I think that's the way it's been working.
All right. Nice to meet you, Jamie. I can't wait to do it
Nice
again.
to meet you too. I'm excited.
Me too. I'll send you those links too.
Yeah, please.
All right.
We'll continue the conversation in the DMs for sure.
Will do. All right. Bye.
All right, we got 25 minutes left. Exactly. And I'm not fucking around this time because I am good at not keeping track of time. But to be clear, that incident, this conversation is not me forgetting about time. That was the actual conversation.
I'm happy you have people who will talk to you about things.
Right.
Clearly, without being too focused on what the implication can be. That's what I was gonna say. Was that they were like, yeah, this person thought this thing about what I was saying, and I was like, but that's like the whole family. Like everyone was like, Jamie, you can't even look into that. You need to just go live in the forest and not think about anything ever because you don't know how crazy it is. And I was like, no, I live in this world. Like I see things that are going on. Like I think people from an older perspective have a harder time intaking that because they were trained to be so patriotic. But like we grew up in an era of having that access to information that showed the government in not good light while going to school and being told, like, be nice to everyone, have conversations, be open, think about things, look at your resources. Like, is this really what you believe about things? And then we go to our parents and be like, wait, this is crazy. And they're like, nah, don't even look at that. That's not real, you know? Or like, oh, that's going to actually fuck you up because you're going to be so sad about it. And it's like, okay, then let me be sad. Let me be that mad. Let a lot of people be that mad so things actually change.
Yeah, maybe we should be uncomfortable.
Yeah, like that's the whole thing. My thing with some perspectives of making everything around you peaceful and pretty and happy is because life isn't pretty and peaceful and happy. Like, again, that sounds insane to me. But they asked you, I remembered what I was thinking about, so I wrote down. They asked you, like, oh, but Chester didn't do that, right? And I was like, what? What do you mean? Because your whole, you guys had brought up how they had to have a separate phone to talk to certain people because they weren't allowed to talk to certain people.
I see you carry Cole.
And I was like, that reminded me.
I'm going to pee real quick. You keep talking.
I was literally talking. That reminded me of the story about Chester telling you something and you went and were asking questions about it, or just like multiple things that he would tell you, and then you would be upset and want to have conversations about it, or like understand it, and then the other parents would get upset that you were asking questions, or how dare you think about me in this way, like da da da. And it's like, but my dad literally told me that happened. I just think it's interesting, like even outside of Jamie's family, like family perspectives of the like, oh yeah, we have all these family secrets that we never told you, and this thing is going on, and you have no right to know about them though. But I'll tell your cousins, and you don't know about them, so you're gonna treat me different than them, but I'm gonna judge you for treating me different. That's insane to me. That it really is. But what I was saying was that in that story, Jamie told me that Jamie ended up hearing from someone else in the family that the family actually had to have like a group get together with all the adults and be like multiple times like, okay, what is the story we're telling the kids, you know? Because they didn't want to be perceived a certain way and actually like be perceived as the person who they are and like the actions they're taking and the way that they're speaking. Like, yeah. You know, it's like, I'm your mom. You can't think about me any other way than how I want you to think about me. It's like, okay, but I can have a thought about the actions that you're taking, the way that you're treating people. And they didn't want that. They wanted you to perceive them only a way. So they had a whole group together with the adults. And they're like, so we need to say this about what happened. We need to say this. And they're like, yeah. But we already said this other thing. And they're like, but if we all agree that it's this way, then that's the way that happened.
When I was talking about how I talked about, like within the last week, I talked about how Elka had gotten drunk and revealed to G in front of me that what I knew about my relationship with Chester, the story I was telling myself and people, that it was actually false. That's what I'm talking about. This is one of the situations, and this is that moment was a product of what they're talking about. And also to clarify on what they're talking about, the cousin I'm talking about in this situation, the one who told me about this, they were actually part of my memory loss. They lived with me for a period of time. And also, I forgot about that. And core memories, like my memories of seeing Shark Boy and Lava Girl for the first time, which is something I brought up when I brought up the Willow Dream yesterday. I said that, but my memory was that I went and saw this with my cousin Alyssa, but I didn't. I saw it with my cousin Amber Lee, who, that blew my mind. Like I was sitting there and they were like, no, that was me. And I was like, no, I literally remember a different person being there. And they're like, it wasn't. It was me.
I've heard you talk about that.
I've talked to them for years about the memory.
That thing with your family. I've heard you talk about that instance with your family. No one corrected you. But what I was getting to was that, like, of course, Chester had to also say those things and skew information because they were made to, you know, the same way as like in albums, you want to say something, but you can't literally say something because you have to be written off on what you're saying. And what do you call it? You have to be cryptic. But then also that's a thing of like creating, being someone who actively lies to your children and then is so flabbergasted when your child is like, hey, are you lying to me? And like doesn't know when you're lying because you just done it so much. Like, it's crazy to me for parents to want their kids to be so smart and so active, just not with them or around them, or even acknowledge life around them.
It's because
how they feel about it.
Especially parents in my life, they are in love with the idea of who I am, not who I am. And I play it into archetypes a lot of my life. Like, I would say that I love being an archetypal person. Like, I love being a brother. I love being a sibling. You know, I was talking to G about this last night. I was like, I love being family. I just do, period. But there's a lot of disconnect between the reality and the perception of reality, which is not the same thing.
How you're allowed to show up, what you're allowed to say, like, it's also skewed. And that happened in my family too, of course. That's what I was saying. It's like everyone's family of being like, what are we going to tell them? And then it's so interesting when I was younger, and then relating to Jamie, that a lot of the mothers and the fathers would have different sides of the experience and try to share them, but be like, hey, this is the right one. You know, like, that mom is going to say this thing about it happening that way, but this is the right one. Okay, son, so be on my side. And then the other mom being like, hey, they actually told me to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you the truth because, you know, you're just so conscious and I want you to know. And then they tell you it in their perspective and totally like annihilate anyone else's perception, and then be like, but don't tell anyone, okay? And then so you're thinking of your aunts or your other family members as these people who do these things, but you're not supposed to let anyone know you know these things. Like, that's insane. That's also like what I was saying when you were like, oh, I know, like, people share things with me and then they're like, why'd you say it? But like, it's literally insane to go to someone in your family and be like, I have all this information I want to share with you. I see how important it is. And here's a couple things, but like, never talk about it. Don't actually think about it. And you actually have to wait for me to tell you anything else. And if you ask me about it again, then you're crazy. Or like, why don't you just get over it and live your life? It's like, wait, but you told me like this really big thing and I'd love for that story to be finished. Or like, I'm constantly thinking about it and I'd love for that not to take up space in my head. So like, maybe we could talk about it. Or like doing her the other day when we were doing the live and you were cutting my hair, they were like, oh, maybe just go take the shower. Sometimes that perception is a little harder than it actually is, which is what Jamie was saying, was like them being able to do the thing that people think is hard, which is talk about the thing. Like how we said, a lot of people in your family are like, Jamie, you don't want to know anything because you don't want to talk about how you're feeling or anything. Like telling you don't want to do that because you're going to be so scared by da da da. It's like, but the things that you're telling me I'm going to be scared about are like the surface level things. Like I know more things and more connections than what you're bringing up right now, and I'm okay with that. I already know that I live in a fucked up society that has differing views on morality, and that's okay with me. I can understand that that is the plight of humanity currently. So it's just the world, guys. Like, let's just talk about it. Insane. It's like everyone's like, but you're confused, but I'm not going to talk about it. You're so confused, I don't even know you're saying you're crazy, but I'm not going to tell you what I know. It's like, okay.
Once confused, always confused. If you get it wrong, you might never get it right, which is a terrible way to deal things.
Also, that leads, or I don't know why, it led me back to my thought on the respectability politics thing that I was talking about when Sean and Ryan were saying the things to you, because the whole family has this whole notion, like they were talking about Samantha, so I'll talk about it in the terms of Samantha, of like being like, oh, you're saying it this way, so that must be how you think about it constantly, and I'm not going to talk to you about it because you think this way. It was like, no, that's how I'm able to express it right now. That's how I feel based off what I know right now. Like, we could talk about things, you can know a little bit more about me, but you're only taking this like certain perception of me and being like, oh, you're that person, so I'm not talking to you. Or, wow, I can't believe you interacted me with this way, so you're horrible and I'm not talking to you. It's like, or I have different interactions and that's how I'm comfortable interacting. If you have a different perception, you can let me know that. But like, I'm not going to get it right 100% of the time on the first go of any interaction. And we all should be aware that each other have different experiences. You know, I said guides of morality, what is and isn't okay to talk about, to do in certain times, or to embody and express. Like, I don't know who you are, so I don't know what you like and what you don't like. And
Also, people change like every second.
Also, like, you're telling me to be me, but then you're like, oh, but change how you're doing that if you're going to interact with me. Like, no, just be, just acknowledge that I'm going to interact different. And I don't know. It's weird because I see so many people who interact with each other who are like, yeah, I don't like that thing that person did, but I can still be around them. Or you shouldn't think that way about them just because they did that, because they're still a whole person. But then when it comes to me and you with people we've had interactions with, it's very much not that energy. And it's interesting. Interesting indeed.
Sorry.
That's it. The whole thought that when they were like, oh, but did Chester did that? I was like, explosive of a thing. That's why when you were like, did you have something to say? I was like, I don't even
maybe?
know.
Maybe? I'm not really sure. Thank you for sharing. That was wonderful. I guess you were my second guest today because nobody else wanted to come on.
Last time you didn't even see that somebody was waiting.
Oh, Bob, look, there hasn't been a new one since.
Well, you got like a couple minutes.
I do. Well, let's see. What's the phone?
I really enjoy that conversation because how we said, like, we're constantly finding things and like just want to talk about them. Like, all these things that we're saying are, of course, just opinions and things that we think based off of what we know, how we say all the time. And like, I was thinking earlier today how I share opinions with people and they'll be like, no, that's a wrong opinion to think and I can't believe you would think that, and like, that's just wrong. And I was like, okay, but why? Like, I seriously am asking why it would be wrong. And they're like, wow, yeah, I can't believe you would think that. I was like, well, I want to have the conversation about why I'm wrong. Please give me more information so I can understand. But then you're ready to dip. I'm like, damn.
It's okay. You guys don't. I'm razzling you. You don't have to come up here. But I did say until 30, so we're gonna wait unless the phone dies. It's at like 5%. Almost.
Have a phone charger.
It's vertical. It's not gonna count because I have to make a whole makeshift stand for it.
Oh, true.
But if it were horizontal on YouTube, I could charge it while we just chill. But that's no time for that. And yeah, I'm fine, Carolina. My freaking neck. I was having like a tough couple of days, and the actual strain of it, like usually I can't stop like verbalizing or physicalizing, moving in the body. But I was like really quiet, so like all of that energy is now in my body, slowly integrating more specifically, and so my like neck, a lot of it stores like right here in the back of the neck, the occipital area, and then like right in here under the jaw and the throat. So I'm just rubbing it down. I'm okay. Now I'm not suddenly getting anxious tics.
They're also tired. We
I'm
have
so
like
tired.
just like a get up and do things and then fall asleep for however long we need to sleep kind of schedule. And then last night it was like, I think you got like 4 hours, little nap.
Yeah.
And we got up and did some stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty free floating over here. But yeah, just so you all know, every single time that I do one of these, I will post it, and soon I'll be exporting these and putting them on YouTube as well, so that they're with all the other community meditations. You have to go to a different place. It's just I'm doing like the work of like 10 people, and I have mental illness challenges. So I'm like, I get like 3 days of like fuck yeah, and then I get 4 days of oh my god, I can't even think about doing anything right now. I fucking Or I can do a lot of thinking, but I can't do a lot of doing.
I also agree that disagreements are interesting. I have a whole thing about like miscommunication. You know, we're all swayed to think like, this is the right way to communicate, rather than acknowledging we all have different communication styles, and that like we could have a conversation through the thing, but you have to be willing to acknowledge that it's not going to go exactly how you want it, or people aren't going to speak exactly how you want them to speak, which might be, never mind. But I guess it is weird.
You said never mind.
Yeah.
You said, oh, there's a door there. Let's not open that one.
Yeah. I did say that.
Oh, I haven't eaten yet. Oh my god. I've had coffee and Little Caesars breadsticks. Which
I can
you
make something.
fucking shoveled into my face. I was eating like whole breadsticks at a time. They're over there like in the passenger seat, like dipping it in the sausages. Okay, here you go. I'm like, no, I know. Open up. Okay. I almost couldn't eat the last one. I had that maximum threshold of like, oh, I ate so much of this thing.
They're
like, I already ate my half, and they're just shoving wet.
I was giving them
bread into my mouth.
I was giving them breadsticks, and they were going for it like, and I was like, stop putting your tongue out. Like I could see the bread on their tongue. I like was almost vomiting next to them, and they're like, yeah, that's what you get for giving me so much breadsticks. I was like, you could have told me to go slower. I'm literally about to like multiple times gag, and they just kept making the noise.
I thought my mouth was a bit cleaner than that, but also like they put so much sauce on it, and stuff always gets around my mouth, and they also purposely do something like, you know, like off to the side and like, oh sorry, I just did that to you, my bad. But like they'll definitely just like, oh, miss your mouth, you know. And so I was like, you know, put it in my mouth, and they were like, stop doing it. And I was like, you don't even understand. Because you literally are going to prank me in a second. Like, you're literally punking me this entire time. So.
Hi, Molly. Thank you for sharing. But yeah, I was just feeding you. I took a bite, and then I give them a bite.
All right, hold on. Nobody's saying anything about wanting to be up here. It's now 23. The phone is going to die. We could do this on YouTube. Okay. And also, for all of you who are watching who don't usually go to the YouTube, go to the YouTube, because we're going to do a different kind of listening party today. A couple weeks ago, I released an expansion on my EP, the only album I've released then. We listened to that. We listened to some of the retrospectives in the Picture Pieces archive. This time, I am building a mixtape out of random pieces of my existence, and I found like the perfect couple of things that are permitted to be shared. So I'm going to share those, and I would love for you to see them. The link is in the story. Also, you type my name into YouTube, and you will find me. It will come up as This Is The Void. I'll have the same picture as my Instagram icon and my SoundCloud icon. Actually, that one might be out of date right now, but I'm not sure. And I would love to see you there.
What's the handle?
Handle is, it should be, well, oh great, yeah. So Joe, the Dreaming Insomniacs, he has both of them. Can you write them down? Can you like copy and paste them real quick and put them in?
Oh, they said they subscribe.
I know, but like you subscribe, so you like know where the links are. I don't think I could do it. Well, actually, I have a different phone right here. Let me see if I could type it into.
You also could just put it after. You could end this and then put it up.
I could. What the fuck is your password? Oh, I know it.
I was thinking more on the concept of miscommunication and misunderstandings, and I remembered how avidly I was upset with that since I was a child. And like in high school, I went on or by that time I was like really fed up, and I went on this whole thing because we had like a debate in class about whether we had to drop the nuke or not. And I got positioned on the no side, and everyone around me, like all of us agreed, the whole class agreed, like we didn't have to do that, you know, but the other side had to fight that they did have to do it. So they had to make up certain things, and they had to acknowledge reality in a certain way that they already verbally acknowledged they didn't agree with. So I thought that was so interesting how we're made to agree with certain things. Like, we have to advocate for both sides when we really don't. Sometimes. But the part about the miscommunication thing, my whole point to that was, oh wait, but y'all could have talked this shit out. Like, put aside the ego, put aside the pride, put aside the
That's it right there.
Ownership of people and land of these head honchos who are power hungry. And would we actually have to do that? Put aside monopolization and capitalism around military forces and patriotism, and would we actually have to have dropped that? And, I just was vividly reminded about that circumstance, and how my stance was very much like, we could always just talk it through. Like, even if you're feeling like, my whole thing with Jamie, or right now it's reminding me of like your episodes and people being like, I can't talk to you because you're that way. And I was like, no, I will put a pause on talking, is how I approach it. It was like, I can see that certain things are happening and you might need to process, and we'll just put a pause on it and come back. And other people are like, if you don't have this conversation with me right now, then I'm never talking to you again. We've been friends for this many years, but I don't give a fuck. We're done. And she was like, damn, I just needed time to process that, you know? I have multiple things happening in my life. It's hard to understand and hold all acknowledgments at one time. Like, you're not, like, told the truth ever by your government or parents or people around you, how they feel, and things are crazy.
Well, you almost got us to the 9:30 mark.
You're welcome. No, yeah, but I was just thinking about the concept of communicating and how everyone's been made to perceive communication as not something we can do.
Or
and instead use violence, but never use violence.
Never use it, but it's the only way.
Someone was talking about the whole like Trump shooting and how there was a bunch of Democratic people are now talking like, violence is never okay though, and da da da. It's like, okay, but you're literally inflicting violence on multiple other countries and all of our mental states, constantly putting us in a chokehold and being like, see, you're acting crazy. And it's like, no, you're literally choking me and I'm fighting back. And so maybe there's a reason why the poor people are crazy and why they can't conform. Maybe they shouldn't be conforming.
Yeah,
maybe you shouldn't create these circumstances in which they act crazy and don't know anything. I wonder why. Don't know.
A Linkin Park song called Wretches and Kings, which is not a song to dismiss. And if you want to see some of the more aggressive fuck you attitude that they have, go listen to that song, because they both, Mike and Chester, verbalize that the people below, the animals, are rising up top. And I think that's exactly the right word, animal. Being treated like animals, but in a derogatory way, not in a understanding of us being literal primates, but also being aware of it as being like, you're subjugated. Animal is a lower consciousness. We're so special, right? Because we're so intelligent and we have cars and internet and whatever, which is true. But that doesn't mean that everything around us isn't. And in fact, we've actually isolated ourselves out of dimensional experiences that we could experience by being so heavily concentrated in these dimensions specifically.
Not acknowledging our humanity. I think we've been put in such a like, we're powerful humans and we're above nature. You know, like we're above those other animals. When it's like, we're literally animals though.
No, literally.
Like, everyone can be so like, oh my god, animals can regenerate their limbs and shit. Oh my gosh, animals can predict weather and migrate to certain things that are better for them. Oh my gosh, animals can talk to each other, and then it'd be like, oh, but people can't do that. You guys can't talk to each other. Oh my gosh, but no, you can't control the weather in any way. So you're crazy and you're a conspiracist if you think that you can do anything that the government didn't tell you can do. Like, that's insane to me. I think I've always just seen myself as an animal. So to be told I need to put on the show was crazy and still is.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
need to get my home and get my kids and no.
Make a job.
No.
I'm only special
I
if
wanna
I'm a
be-
CEO.
I want to
What?
be
Who
in
has
the
dreams
dirt
like that? What are you talking about?
with other people, hanging off some trees, doing things, and maybe go back to a home when I want to
Hanging
be
off
in a
some
home.
trees and doing things. That's a bar.
Just I mean, like I
I'm
think
an
like
animal hanging off of trees and doing things. Oh, nailed it.
where that came from was like the construct of being what's it called? Something about your time, like doing something with your time.
Purposeful?
No, that's not the word I'm looking for. Like that you always have to be doing something productive. That you always have to be productive and going towards something and trying to do better and da da da. And it's
Ambition.
like, girl, let me live my life. Let me smell the flowers. Like, not everybody wants to create their own business that is the same business that fucking 200 other people have, and we're all competing to get little coins. Like, the game is over. Like, we don't want to play no more. Your game wasn't fun. I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, Little Sims has some bars about that are pretty good. You can play the game, but I don't feel the need, no. And guess what? It's 9:30.
Yeah.
If you would like
32,
to.
actually.
Fuck!
So end it now. So it's on
Fuck!
32.
Guys, we're going to
Bye.
YouTube. The link's in the story.
Bye.
Bye. Gotta go.
End it.